Okay.
Okay, welcome everyone. Good evening. I'm going to call this meeting to order. If our members participating remotely can just give me a thumbs up to let me know if the audio sounds clearly. Perfect. Okay, I want to welcome everyone to Ava Community Energy. This is the Board of Directors meeting for Wednesday, January 17th, 2024. Happy New Year. And before we get started, I'm going to ask our clerk to swear in our new directors.
Yes. Director Nybert, if I have you raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I, Jeff Nybert, do solemnly swear
Can you please unmute yourself? Thank you.
I, Jeff Nobert, do solemnly swear
I, Jeff Nybert, do solemnly swear
We can't
but
hear the
I'm still muted.
audio in your room. Give us a second. It might be our volume. Just give us a second.
Can we test to see if
Yes,
anyone
can we
else?
can someone else test to see if we could hear you, those participating remotely?
Member
Can- no,
Cox, can you
test?
say
speak?
hi to us?
No,
Yeah, can
unmute
you hear me?
yourself. One of you unmute yourself so we could see if we could hear you clearly.
I can hear
Member
the
Patino,
open
can you
center.
unmute yourself and speak?
I can hear everybody. I can
Oh,
hear
we
everybody.
can't hear you. So give us a second.
I can
We're
hear
trying to work
everyone.
out the technology. Thank you. Our community members listening online, please give us a second. We're trying to make sure the audio is working accurately. Okay, can our member from Pleasanton please speak so we could test the volume?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Yes.
hear you. Thank you
Great.
so much. We're
Thank
on
you.
track now.
Thank you. I, Jeff Nobert, do solemnly swear or affirm
I, Jeff Nybert, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations and welcome. Thank you. We're now going to move on to the roll call. If the clerk can please conduct the roll call.
Thank you. Albany. Here. Berkeley. Dublin.
Here.
Emeryville.
Present.
Fremont.
Present.
Thank you. Hayward.
Here.
Livermore. Newark. Oakland. Piedmont.
Present.
San Leandro.
Present.
Stockton. Present. Tracy.
Here.
Union City.
Present.
Community Advisory Committee.
Present.
Pleasanton.
Here,
Alameda County.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. And if you can please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please stand if you're able to. I pledge allegiance
allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Also, just want to note that there are several locations listed on the agenda. These are the locations of our members that are participating remotely. Clerk, do they have to confirm that they're at the specific location, or is it just, as long as it's listed, we've satisfied that requirement?
We can have a verbal confirmation that members are at their locations.
Okay, our member from Berkeley, can you confirm your location, that it is the one listed on the agenda?
Not here.
Not here, okay. Dublin?
Yes.
And this would be for Dublin and Pleasanton, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Our member from Emeryville?
I confirm.
Wonderful. Fremont?
Confirmed Irvington Community Center. Thank you.
Thank you. San Leandro?
Confirmed Marina Community Center lobby.
Thank you. Tracy?
From Tracy, I'm attending from 1755 Harvest Landing Lane, Tracy, California, 95376.
Thank you. Union City?
Confirmed, I am at 33349 9th Street, Union City, California, back office.
Thank you. And I don't know who this is, but we have a member in Costa Rica.
Confirmed that I am 500 meters east of on the street. That is the actual address. Greetings from much later in Costa Rica.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate everyone confirming their location. And if you'd like to participate remotely, the information to access the Zoom link is listed on the agenda. We're now going to move on to item number 3. This is public comment. This is for any item under the purview of Ava Community Energy, but not listed on the agenda. If you would like to speak on a specific agenda item, you can raise your hand under public comments when that item is called. Clerk, do we have any members from the public that would like to speak under public comment?
Yes, we do. Local Clean Energy Alliance, you recognize for 2 minutes.
Hi, everyone. This is Jessica Tovar of the East Bay Clean Power Alliance and Local Clean Energy Alliance. And I wanted to say hello to the board members tonight. Just to kind of share a little bit of the history, my organization actually was started to advocate for a community choice program in the East Bay. And this started back in 2008. And back in 2016, we were successful in getting the Alameda County Board of Supervisors to support us in starting a community choice energy agency. But even more uniquely is the commitment towards investing the money that we pay to electricity back into the community. in the form of community benefits. And there is a roadmap that the Board of Supervisors put up $500,000 for, and it's known as the Local Development Business Plan. If you're not familiar with the Local Development Business Plan, I encourage you to get familiar with it because that really is the heart of this agency. And just to really name, we really want to reground the agency back into its original commitment to the community. And that this agency was formed really with the advocacy and the heart and the hard work of an intersection of environmental justice, environmental folks, as well as workforce and labor. So I wanted to name a little bit of that history. And we are well overdue for an update to that local development business plan to acknowledge the communities that we now represent in San Joaquin County, but also the fact that we're actually way behind on schedule. And if anything, I feel like this agency really needs to be re-grounded. Clean power to the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tom Kelly, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Adrian. Just to follow up on Tom Kelly from Berkeley, just to follow up on Jessica's points, was 2018 when that local development business plan was drafted. And it had some pretty significant recommendations for what EVCE could actually undertake, within the first few years of its operation. I've reviewed it from time to time, and I don't think EVCE AVA has actually done any of it. And so I would second Jessica's request for a revision of the 2018 local development business plan. And also let's give the board and the public a report on what actually has been accomplished in terms of the recommendations that were made back then. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no further public comment.
Thank you. We're now going to move on to our consent agenda, which consists of items 4 through 7. Is there a request to pull any items from consent? Are there any? Go ahead, sure.
Are these live?
Yes.
So one comment I got from our staff, I don't want to pull it, was just that some of the contracts were not identified in the consent items. So maybe for the future reference, just clear titles about what each contract is, what it does. That's just a comment for staff. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other members that would like to pull any items or have any questions on the consent items 4 through 7? Okay, see no one, we'll open up public comment for consent items 4 through 7.
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent? Moved by Director Wright, seconded by
Second.
Member Tiedemann. We'll do a roll call vote. Motion was made by Wright, seconded by Tiedemann.
Thank you. Albany.
Yes.
Berkeley. Dublin.
Yes.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Fremont.
Yes.
Hayward.
Yes.
Livermore. Newark.
Yes.
Oakland. Aye. Piedmont.
Aye.
San Leandro.
Aye.
Stockton.
Aye.
Tracy.
Yes.
Union City.
Aye.
Pleasanton.
Aye.
Alameda County.
Aye, thank you. We'll now move on to our regular agenda, item number 8, report from our CEO, Nick Chassid.
All right, thank you. So on the committee front, we did not hold our January executive committee meeting. Our next meeting, though, is planned for Wednesday, February 7th. And we did, though, hold a finance, admin, and procurement subcommittee meeting on Wednesday, January 10th. And the topic we covered there is the fiscal year budget surplus and long-term offtake agreements. And both of those topics are on the agenda this evening. We do have two new colleagues to share. We have started with Ava. First is Romeo Phillips. Romeo joins Ava as a data engineer on our data analytics team. Romeo comes to us from Echo Analytics, where Romeo was a geospatial data engineer. Romeo brings experience in the Google Cloud Platform Suite and various other technologies. And our other colleague is Vashna Manisha, who joined us as a settlements manager on our Power Resources team. Vashna is responsible for overseeing and optimizing complex financial transactions within the energy market settlements. And Vashna came to us from the California Independent System Operator. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for our CEO? Any public comment for this item?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item number 9. This is the report from our CAC Chair, Anna Olivia.
Thank you so much, Chair. So due to the holiday, the CAC meeting was held last night. That is the reason that you do not have an annotated agenda in front of you, as I have not had ample time between the meeting running late last night and my work day today to type it up for you. So you will get that. I'll just run through our notes on each item. Another member of the Community Advisory Committee has stepped down. We now have a 6-member quorum. And as our meeting started late due to quorum issues and a member having to leave when the meeting ran long, we were not able to retain quorum during the meeting. We did get through some items though, but chair elections will be held at the start of the February meeting as opposed to at the end of the January meeting, which does make this my last meeting with the board. And that's what it is. I do want to inform the board that I will be stepping down from the CAC as well. I have informed staff that the recruitment process should include a full-time position for North County as opposed to the only the alternate position being available. There was a request that a longer period be allowed for recruitment, as some of our most active members only found out that the recruitment was open, like the actual application was open, when they went onto the website to look at last night's agenda. And that recruitment period is slated to close February 2nd. And that's a pretty short window because folks are still just getting back from holidays. And there was some request for some consideration and support. Members of the CAC are also taking buses after long periods of time to get to the same meeting room you're in. And it would be wonderful if there was a little bit of food, as they are having granola bars for dinner and things like that, and which are not provided by APA. The rest of our conversation happens on items that are on the agenda. And so we will save our comments for that time.
Thank you, Chair Eldred. I want to just thank you for your dedication and service. You've been extremely committed, accessible, and I know you vet a lot of dialogue and inquiries from members of the public. So just want to publicly fully acknowledge you for your leadership and your commitment. You've made a tremendous impact. So thank you for your service. Do any of the directors have any questions or comments for the chair of our CAC? Go ahead.
I just wanted to echo our chair's comments and thank Chair Eldred for all the work they've done on behalf of EBCE and Ava Community Energy now. You have been a reliable member of this body for longer than many of us have been here, so we will miss you.
And we do have public comment.
Emmanuel Diaz Hayes, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
I do. Today I'm very happy.
you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think I did it. I made it. I did it too. You good, Rick? Fine.
But
It's
Yeah, I go. If I did, I prefer you. I made part of it. I made it too.
It's difficult to understand you. Is it possible to
Yeah.
email your
Huh?
comments? Go ahead. Can you
Yeah,
hear
the
us?
party we go party we did. Yeah, party I made it. Today party. Today I made the party. You party this year.
Sir, it's difficult to understand you. Would it be possible that you email your comment to the clerk, please?
Yeah, Papa, Papa. You like a party, you?
I will come back to Emmanuel.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can you
Thank you.
provide the email to the?
You can
Yes, I'll ask the clerk to share the email. Thank you for that
Great.
suggestion.
Thank you. I will email my information.
Can you just say it for the record for anyone else that might want the email? Just so-
Yes, A Bankhead, ABANKHEAD @avaenergy.org, AVAENERGY.org, A Bankhead @avaenergy.org.
Is that also listed on our website?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you so much, clerk.
Thank you. Local Clean Energy Alliance, you recognized for 2 minutes.
Hi, real quick comments on behalf of Local Clean Energy Alliance and also the East Bay Clean Power Alliance. I just want to thank Ann Olivia Aldred, who's been a part of this process for a long time, very dedicated. I want to circle back to one of the first conversations that happened when we were first putting together the Community Advisory Committee. There was an election for a chair. And some comments were made that a woman would not handle this work because it was too technical. And I want to circle back to that conversation because part of the struggle really is about women and, you know, folks of color like myself who are not trusted or respected in this space. And that day and that comment stuck with me for years. So I just want to honor you, Ann Olivia, because you have done an incredible job. You even went out of your way to learn about this stuff, and I've learned so much from you. You are very passionate about equity and justice. And in this space where people like us are not respected, it means a lot. You definitely speak for a lot of people who are not here, who can't be here, and who are struggling to be in this very space. So I want to say that with great appreciation and respect for you. You have done an incredible job. So thank you. Clean power to the people.
Tim Frank, recognized for 2 minutes.
Terrific. Well, I just want to echo those comments. I'm Tim Frank, and I'm speaking on behalf of the building trades of Alameda County. I just learned that she was actually stepping down, and we've really appreciated working with Ann Olivia. I think she's done a very nice job, and I want to just thank you for a job well done. Thanks. Take care.
Thank you. Tom Kelly, you recognized for 2 minutes.
Thanks, Adrian. Thank you. Good luck, Ann Olivia. It's been great working with you, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And I hope you'll stay connected in some ways to Ava, because there's still an awful lot of work to do. Just sort of on that point, I'm just wondering if we have an aggressive recruitment process in place to fill the empty slots on the CAC. although, it can, the CAC can bring up topics that, can be challenging, I'm sure, for staff and for the board. I think it's absolutely essential that CAC be functional, fully fully participatory with representatives from all the areas that Ava provides electricity. So thank you. And again, good luck, Anna Olivia. All the best.
Thank you. There are no further hands raised for public comment.
Thank you. I do have one follow-up question for staff. If we don't have a strong pool of candidates after the deadline, what's our process? Could we reopen that? Would we do like a second approach, or how have we dealt with that in the past?
Yep. Yeah, we would just reopen it. I mean, it's really it's not, we don't judge the strength of the candidates. It's really the board that would, would do that. We could, yeah. So
I'm
like
sorry,
all
let me
flex.
reword that.
Yeah.
It's not really pull in quantity, but just in quantity. Let's say
Correct.
we only
I
get one
understand.
applicant.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have full flexibility to reopen, go back out, extend. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you to Chair Eldred for your comments, and we'll keep a close eye on this, and I'm certainly open to some flexibility if we don't get a large quantity of applicants. Are there any other comments on this item? We're still on item number 9.
We still have one, we have one more hand raised.
Okay.
Audrey Ichinose, recognized for 2 minutes. Audrey Ichinose, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Audrey, did you want to speak on the CAC chair report? Item number 9? She put her
Okay,
hand down.
come back to.
Okay, so I'm going to just call for one last time public comment on item number 9, CAC chair report. Are there any more public comments on this item?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Thank you. We're now going to move on to item number 10. This is fiscal year budget surplus. This is an action item. We are approving allocation of budget surplus among a few options is how it's listed on the agenda. I'll now turn it over to Mr. Bartlett.
I'm going to present.
Okay.
Okay, so when we set the budget in June of 23, direction was given to come back here at mid-year to review one, just how we're doing, and also to discuss the allocation of net revenue. So this past fiscal year, we split our net income, net revenues, 50-50. Well, there's a waterfall. First, money went to reserves, and then whatever was left over was split 50-50 between a fund to support the procurement of more long-term renewable energy and on-bill credits for customers. Those on-bill credits for customers are in the process of being paid. For the residential customers, that has been about $7.80. And so we're now here to discuss kind of next slide, please, actually, what changes, if any, we may want to make to that 50-50 allocation to do other things. So as a starting point, when we set our budget, we projected just under 180 million of net revenues. Under our policy, the first 150 million would go to working capital and reserves, and then the residual, just under 30 million, would be split 50% to more long-term renewables, 50% towards an on-bill credit. As we currently stand under sort of the current projections, we're forecasting $260 million surplus. which would create $110 million to be allocated between potentially more long-term renewables or on-bill credits, or potentially other options. And so that's really what we're here to focus on, is what those other options could be. I'll note, though, we don't actually know what what that number is going to be until typically October, when we complete our financial audits. And so whatever decision is made today, it wouldn't be until October that we finalize what the final numbers are and are able to make any sort of use of those funds. So there's sort of three general sort of options, and then a recommendation from the Finance and Administration Committee. And they, relate to the two options that we have in place, and then potentially a third option, which would be provide incentives for solar, rooftop solar and storage, targeting specific customer classes. Okay, next slide, please. So retaining the on-bill credit. Retaining the on-bill credit. Under the original budget, if we allocated 50%, it would have resulted in just under $10 customer credit. With the new forecast, more net income, more net revenues, we'd be looking at a $36 residential credit. I think both of these are important to sort of think about in the context of the fact that the generation rate that PG&E charges customers, thus the AVA customer charges, has risen quite significantly. So the average under the new rates that went into effect January 1, the average AVA customer would expect to see a generation charge, an AVA charge that's $70 higher than it was before those rate increases went into effect. And the reason for that is, if you recall, we set our rates based on they are indexed to those of PG&E. So we set our rates at a 5% discount to PG&E. Whatever PG&E's rates are, we set it at 5% discount. And we will be revisiting what that rate is mid-year, but that is our policy today. So if we were to allocate 50% of this projected surplus, that would cover more than 50% of the rate increase. So we would be more than half of these higher costs would be offset by the customer credit that we would be providing to customers towards the end of the year. So, that becomes pretty meaningful.
Yeah. News, the news is not good for PG&E. They're coming back with a bill that was snuck in, that the rates are going to be according to your earnings. So the people who earn more are going to pay more. It's not going to go into the usage. It's going to be on your income. So does AVA plan how to work that?
So the income-based fixed charge is not gone into effect yet. There is a proposal being considered. That would not be a charge that would affect the AVA bill. That would be just on the if approved, it would be on the transmission and distribution portion of the bill, not on the AVA portion of the bill.
Who's ever asking the question closer to a microphone? It was I couldn't quite make that out.
Do you want us to repeat the question, or can you please repeat the question and just?
¿En español? No. My
Español está
question
bien.
was, there's a bill that was snuck in, they do that. Politicians, oh, I'm a politician. Anyway, that snuck in and people didn't see it. And now the legislature's looking at it because people are complaining about it. And what PG&E snuck in is that people will be paying their rates, not according to usage, but according to their income. And apparently they want to hit the higher income people with more money, but it's not going to be an incentive to what do you call it, conserve. It's just whatever you make, that's what it's going to build.
We will actually be coming back here in the not too distant future with sort of our review of the income graduated fixed charge. That's what it's called. I'll just note, it is actually, we've done very extensive analysis, and it is potentially very troubling for AVA customers. So a household of four that makes $75,000 a year, not high income by any means, could see under the PG&E proposal their bills increased by $50 to $100 beyond the rate increases that we're already seeing based on the fixed charge proposal. So that's not relevant here because we're not, it wouldn't affect our bill, but it potentially is, quite a negative outcome for many of our customers. This is the on-bill credit. We're seeing, projecting a potentially much higher on-bill credit that would go to offset the higher underlying generation costs. Next slide, please. This chart shows just how our rates and have indexed to those of PG&E over time. And on the right-hand side, you see how the on-bill credit, if applied, would further reduce the annual cost for the customer. One thing we didn't note here, but I think is just interesting to say, is the on-bill credit that we just provided customers, that was $7.80 or so. For your average Renewable 100 customer, offset something like 65% of the annual premium. So instead of paying on average $1 more a month to be 100% renewable, when you account for the bill credit, customers are paying more like 30 cents a month in premium to go 100% renewable. So that's kind of a nice story to tell. Option B, next slide. So option B would be to allocate to long-term renewables. This is something that we have done this last year. We could potentially do again. The way this works is we set aside these funds to go and support buying a portion of or the entirety of a new renewable energy project that we might not have otherwise procured because of its cost. So we're buying something a little more expensive than we might have otherwise procured because we have these funds to defray the costs. And then the third option is, next slide please, is to take funds and allocate them to incremental incentives for solar and storage. So we're planning in the next number of months to come back with a proposal to the board for how we will implement Net Energy Metering 3, the net billing tariff. As part of that, we're going to be proposing an incentive that we would offer to every customer to help encourage more solar and storage adoption. Incentive or a payment, a bill credit or a payment over time. And what we are envisioning here is this pool of funds, let's say it's $20, $30, $40 million that we are able to sort of finalize in October, that would go as an added benefit or an added incentive on top of what sort of our main market offer. So let's say we're offering the average residential customer $20 a month in bill credits if they install a solar and storage system. This might allow us to offer an additional $20, $30, $50, $100 a month for customers, but say focusing on care customers or projects that are in specific disadvantaged communities or in census tracts with high levels of air pollution already. And so that's how we would do it. We are seeking, or we are proposing or seeking direction to tie whatever incentives are approved potentially today to our overall approach to providing incentives for solar and storage. So let's not go in and create a new program. We're going to be creating a program and an infrastructure for encouraging solar and storage. Let's use these funds within that infrastructure to create more value proposition or a better value proposition for specific types of customers. So finally, let me get to the recommendation that came from the Finance and Administration and Procurement Committee. Next slide, please, Adrian. And that was to shift away from a 50-50 split, 50% towards long-term renewables and 50% towards a customer bill credit. And instead of providing funds for long-term renewables, say we still want to encourage renewables, but let's really focus on encouraging local resilience and local renewable energy in the form of local rooftop solar. So shift away from this long-term renewable fund to more incentives for local rooftop solar and storage. And so consider really a 60-40 split, 60% for on-bill credits with some portion Specifically for Care and Fair customers, the last 2 years, we have provided a $50 bill credit on top of the general bill credit to Care customers. And so the idea would be to take, I think the conversation was 20%, potentially 20% of the bill credit, apply that to a Care Fair, a higher Care Fair bill credit, 40% to a bill credit for all customers, and then the other 40% would go towards incentives for solar and storage projects. So in the table, you see how that would kind of work. If you did this 40-20 split, every residential customers would be getting a $28 bill credit. Care and Fair customers would be getting a $172 bill credit. At $172, you're potentially offsetting up to 3 months of AVA charges, so it starts to become pretty significant. If we did that, I think one thing we might recommend is apportioning it over the course of a couple different bill cycles, maybe quarterly or every 4 months, so that you have 3 opportunities to share with your customers this benefit that you're providing. But anyway, those are details that we would work out in the future. And then for the net billing tariff, I think what we're generally proposing is, to start with, we don't need specific direction about where these funds need to be apportioned today. We just know that it's 40%, and we have some time to just sort of define exactly what customer classes or types of projects might we want to apportion incentives to. But I think generally the thought is a mix of dollars for Care Fair customers, so solar and storage on the home of a Care Fair customer, or on multifamily where there's a income qualified multifamily, or specific community projects that provide community resilience as well. So that's it.
Okay, any questions from directors? Yes, go ahead, Member Roche.
Thank you. I wanted to ask, and maybe this will be discussion for item, I think it's not the next one, but on the procurement issue. But was there a discussion in the Finance Committee about using the funds to, increase our renewables on the Bright Choice, in any way? I mean, maybe that was option B, right? To sort of look at other renewable projects, but did they discuss that?
No.
They didn't, so that wasn't even an option at the time.
We presented these as sort of the 3 options that we have heard, but no, increasing Bright Choice clean energy content was not a topic that was discussed. No.
Okay, and then because I guess the comment I got, in the discussions I've had with the city was that if our core mission is providing cleaner energy, and instead we're focusing on bill savings, was there a discussion about that we were looking more towards how do we get the product cleaner for our customers that are Bright Choice, rather than just bill savings?
I don't think we spoke about that specifically. I think that's a topic that has come up quite a bit over time, and I think generally my response would be, we have a target. We're working towards 2030 to get to 100%, and year in, year out, depending on the fiscal situation, we actually, the last 2 years, we have increased the portion of clean energy relative to sort of our schedule, because the finances have supported doing so, and I think we can continue to do that as well. I think the main caution about, say, structurally accelerating is we can only build new stuff so quickly. Yeah. And so when we increase our clean energy content beyond the schedule, we're having to go buy short term in the market. And you run into scarcity dynamics, because more people we're not the only ones who want to do this.
Yeah.
There more load, more CCAs are chasing a fairly fixed pool of clean energy resources, a pool that's growing, but it's growing only as quickly as we can build new wind farms and solar farms.
Okay. And I know we've talked about this before, but then the other question was, what about, focusing on local development programs, and specifically looking at, like we just had our discussion about increasing our fleet, electrifying our fleet. and how difficult that is. I mean, just the cost keeps going up, the supply keeps going up. Was there any discussion on potentially helping cities in that?
So there was some discussion of other types of electrification to be used. So that was a question. Could we allocate this to other electrification projects?
Mhm.
Of course, we can. I think we would just want to know. I think we'd want to know more specifically kind of what to do with those funds. Now, today we could say, one, we don't need to make a decision today. This is not we're not, we won't actually know what to do with the funds until October. I think it's mostly that we just want it, whenever we are told, we just want to know specifically how the money should be apportioned. The major, and what portion should go to bill credits, because the bill credits, there are some mechanics around setting the billing system up and making sure that we have enough sort of time, sort of thinking about, all right, when do we want to communicate with customers that these bill credits are coming? But anything that's on the more programmatic side, whether it's solar and storage incentives or incentives for fleet electrification, we have some time now. I'll say we have other things we have in our local development budget. We are also doing those things, and so I would want to probably have a conversation about is our funnel big enough to be able to push more money through in that specific area? So maybe with fleet electrification, it is great, but if you were to say we want to do it for municipal building electrification, I might go and say, well, I don't know of that many projects that are out there that can use the budget that we already have. Allocating another $10 million may just mean money is sort of sitting there waiting for projects to come.
Okay, no, that's helpful. I mean, I would just be curious to hear what anyone else thought, because it is such a specific thing that we're all tasked with now in the cities to try to get there, and it's hard and expensive. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any more comments, Member Toomey?
So two questions, which part of what Nick, you just addressed some of the options presented to us. We've got two that are the existing things we would split them with, and then one that's sort of a new one. So can you say a little bit more about how we arrived at having this net metering proposal specifically as the third option of what else we could allocate to, and why that was sort of seemed more doable or more useful with this surplus?
So at the June meeting, there was public comment and board comment as well about using these funds to support resilience hubs. So resilience hubs essentially are solar and storage projects. And so we have sort of, I will say, we've persistently heard from members of the board and from the public that there's interest in providing funds for resilience hubs from this pool of money. And so that's why we ended up focusing on that as opposed to other clean energy opportunities, but other clean energy opportunities are available. So
great. And you're preempting what was going to be my next question of you mentioned in the presentation that this could be used for multifamily community resilience hubs, when I think maybe the first reactions I think some might have seeing a net energy program is that it's more going to be used for homeowners. So can you say more about how this can be used for those community resilience hubs that we've heard so much about in the previous?
So the reason why we focused on sort of characterizing in the context of net billing tariff is we do want to try to avoid creating two specific sort of pathways or programs. A resilience hub will be subject to the net billing tariff. It will be under, because it's being developed, it's being put behind the customer meter, it will be on net energy metering. And so let's use the example let's not use a residential example, let's use a commercial example. So we're in the process of developing a series of resilience hubs on critical municipal facilities. Under a project like that, or let's say a fire station, City of Albany wants to put solar and storage on a fire station. Under our general market program, that fire station may be eligible for a $250 a month bill credit based on the size of the battery that they're installing. So we're going to give you $250 a month as a bill credit to improve the economics of putting solar and storage. Now that, with these funds, we might say, all right, the eligibility, the three sort of criteria of who are eligible to draw from these funds are low income, so it could be multifamily or single family. So but you have to be care or income qualified, and it can be community-based organizations that are providing community resilience with specific eligibility criteria to ensure that there's open access. That is one concern that I think we have is when you think about privately held, they're not necessarily, could be a nonprofit, but how do we ensure that everybody is welcome into that resilience hub? Whereas in a community center, if it's publicly owned, there tends to be more of that requirement that there's public access. But we might say there's a community-based organization eligibility criteria, and then there's public sector. And they might say there's the base $250 a month rebate or incentive that you get or bill credit. And on top of that, from this fund of $40 million, you're going to get an additional $500 a month. So suddenly you're getting a much bigger incentive, and it might be paid upfront. Say, you'll get $250 a month, but you'll also get $25,000 upfront to help offset the cost of installation. That's how it would work.
Mm-hmm. And just to confirm, so that's saying that this would target a broader spectrum of community hubs than we previously have when we focused on municipal buildings, and that the exact parameters of that would be designed in the next couple months before we actually, realize.
Between now and October, when we have the funds, we would want to develop the criteria for eligibility, and we'd want to sort of figure out how the money is apportioned. For every unit of battery, we're going to apportion $5,000 for every kilowatt of battery. The base incentive might be equal to $1,000 per kilowatt, but we want to add an additional $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 a kilowatt to make these much lower cost to the end users.
Right, and the idea, again, the idea behind it is that we're hitting a wider range of projects than we previously have with that sort of thing.
Yes, yep.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Director Anderson.
Thank you so much, Chair. My question is actually not an original one. I think I've been on this board for about a year now, and someone else gets credit for asking this question last year, and I'm just going to ask it again. Have we considered potentially untethering our rates, AVA's rates, from PG&E and/or changing the percentage link? I mean, right now it's what, 5% below or a little bit above, depending on which plan you choose. And I'm just wondering if it's going to generate these surpluses for AVA. Maybe we want to use some different math.
Yes. So, I think there's two parts to that question. One is the actual tethering, so the index. We have at various times talked about moving away from the index. Some CCAs, what they do is they set their rates at one point in time. Say for us, it would be in June. We'll say we're setting our rates. In June, it's a 5% or 6% discount. And then between June, June to June, PG&E's rates might go up or they might go down. So over the course of the year, that CCA, so MCE is an example, there may be a time over the course of the year where their rates are now 15% below, but there's also instances where their rates are 10% above. And so I think the reason why we have to date stuck with the index up and down is that it creates it's an easier customer communication, sort of whether it's for Renewable 100 or for Bright Choice. Our commitment to you and our value proposition relative to PG&E is X. And over the course of the year, it's not going to change. It'll move and moves up and down. Now, the other aspect of it is when PG&E's generation rates go up, it's a result of underlying energy market prices being higher, which means our procurement costs. So it actually also serves as a risk management strategy. So we, in our overall sort of energy risk management, we go and we buy physical energy. We have solar and wind, and we buy large hydro. We have financial instruments that we've entered into to basically buy insurance. We fix the price of some portion of our energy supply. And then there's some portion that is basically subject to the market fluctuations. Insurance is expensive. We are able, because we tether to PG&E up and down, we know based on what's happening in the energy market, we have the ability to forecast what how that's going to affect PG&E's rates in the following year. And because of our rates follow PG&E's up and down, we actually buy less insurance because we know, hey, PG&E's rates are going to go up. We're going to generate more revenue. And so we can offset some of the higher energy prices that we might not be able to offset if we sort of did a one-time set it and forget it. So that has been our rationale. Can we change it? Of course, but that's been our rationale. Now on the 5%, we intend every year we review it, and we've been increasing our discount. We'll need to look at our forecast. I would not be surprised if we came back and said we want to incrementally increase our discount for the next year. We probably also have 1 year left of needing to significantly allocate to our reserves. Consider that in this presentation, we're talking about $150 million to reserves. Let's say we have 1 more year of $150 million. Once we've hit our reserve targets, we don't have to allocate that. That's money that will then flow back to buying more clean energy at lower rates and more local investments. So if we had $150 million, you could potentially lower our rates by 50 or 75 million and then still have 75 million to spend on other things. So I tend to think that we're getting to a place where we're going to have the potential to have an even bigger discount relative to PG&E.
Thank you. I'm going to call on Chair Eldred and then ask our directors that are participating remotely, if you have any questions, to please raise your hand.
Thank you. We do have comments on this, but this is a clarifying question. CEO Chesed, you were just saying that this dollar amount per month, when we sought clarification, we were under the impression that the $35 or $36.53 or $28 and some odd cent for the average residential customer was an annual credit as opposed to a monthly credit. Can you just clarify that? Because I just heard you talking about monthly.
It is an annual credit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do you want to give your comment now? Or do you want to wait?
Would you like the CAC comments before public comment?
No, we could hold off. That's fine. Do any other directors have any questions or comments at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to public comment.
We have 2 hands raised. Emmanuel Diaz-Hayes, recognized for 2 minutes.
Yeah, they still wanted the play.
My apologies, we're still.
They want because with today's station. Okay, the wedding was to go on the place about it's not.
Can you hold on just a second, Mr. Diaz? I'm going to ask our
But not
Can we turn on the chat feature? Is that in?
not they're not doing eating up. That's what they're eating up.
Mr. Diaz, I'm going to respectfully ask if you could please
That's right. You cannot do eating up.
email your comments to the clerk, please, and you can find the clerk's email address on the website.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Kelly, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Adrian. Couple of things. I'm looking at the report and I see that the net revenues are actually anticipated to be about 45% of what was budgeted. And the budget was pretty significant at $180 million. And as a member of the public, and I would hope as a member of the board, you'd want to know why the difference is so significant. From my perspective, it looks to me like we're overcharging our customers. And so I would like to second the comments made by the board members to suggest that we actually go to a cost of service rate schedule rather than pegging our rates to PG&E. I mean, it's kind of unconscionable to be charging so many people so much more than it actually costs to deliver electricity to them. That's the first thing. The second thing I'd like to say is that Peninsula Clean Energy just announced that they're giving a $300 bill credit to all CARE and FARA customers. You know, $36 to many of us wouldn't even be noticeable on our bills. Why not take that money that we've allocated for bill credits and give it to the people who need it, you know, and make it meaningful rather than, you know, dribbling out a few bucks to people who, you know, wouldn't have any, probably wouldn't even recognize the fact. In our case, we have solar and we have a battery. We don't actually pay EBCE or AVA very much for electricity. I mean, we'd wind up getting a kind of a surplus. So, and the last thing I'd say is that option C is a no-go in my view. We've had these kind of incentives before, but with NEM 3, people are not buying solar anymore.
Thank you. Audrey Ichinose, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. I was having audio problems last time. I think that this will come up again in the future about what exactly will be the net billing tariff projects. But I do want to plump for resiliency hubs. You know, I have been previously very skeptical about the need for resiliency hubs, but the experience of the Lahaina fires really brought home to me, having grown up in Hawaii, the possibility today of climate-caused catastrophes occurring even in the most unlikely places. So I hope to bring that up again in the future. We need more infrastructure, allocations for resiliency hubs that can, where people can shelter during blackouts and other climate emergencies that are not, you know, limited firehouses and police stations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Local Clean Energy Alliance, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Hi, this is Jessica Tovar on behalf of the East Bay Clean Power Alliance and the 12 environmental justice organizations that signed on to our letter calling for AVA Community Energy to invest $15 million of the budget surplus into community resilience hubs that prioritize environmental justice, low income, and BIPOC communities and site selection, as this is where the need for energy resilience is the highest. And we've been advocating for this ever since September 9th, 2020, when the fires blew so much smoke that the sun was actually blocked by the smoke. We were going through a heat wave. We were going through power shutoffs in the middle of a pandemic, inundated with great amounts of smoke. So if your power was turned out and you happened to have an air filter, you couldn't run it. One of the things that I want to highlight is that resilience hubs with microgrids is not only very much needed, we need to build the energy resilience now. I just had a conversation with one of my elders earlier today who is going without power in the middle of an ice storm in Oregon. That these are life-saving resources that are needed in all our lowest income and vulnerable communities. So a better investment, I will say, I'm not against the bill credits. We support the bill credits, but we also support building energy resilience, community benefits that will be felt in the long term. Other things I want to just highlight is that, you know, I don't know about you, but I don't know a lot of poor people who have access to solar and battery storage right now on their homes, even if they own them. So I'm begging you today to do this investment for our most vulnerable communities. Thank you very much. Clean power to the people.
There's no further public comment.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Chair Eldred if she would like to make her comments now with respect to the CEC's input.
Thank you. All right, so for folks who weren't necessarily here for this, when this item first came forth, part of the reason the board agreed to hold this portion of the waterfall was due to some much needed conversations regarding the best benefit for our communities and the use of our surplus. There was an estimated 15 million that was proposed to go towards on-bill credit. It was presented as an average of $6 per residential customer. But during the discussion, it came out that, for example, the city of Oakland would receive an estimated $10,000. Now, this wasn't presented in any of the written materials available to the public or in the presentation at all until the board was voting to hold this for further discussion. Current estimates for the 50-50 split have the average residential customer at $36.53 per year, and the 60-40 split proposed by the FAP subcommittee with the dedicated 20% for the CareFera and medical baseline customers, which is an awesome thing, by the way, has the average residential customer at around $28. So last night we asked what that means for large business customers and the cities that the representatives of this body represent. Staff were able to provide numbers for the average business customer at around 170 or 180 a year, but we were informed that the amount that the municipalities would get had not been calculated, as we wouldn't know until October what it really was. So we did leave this line of questioning, but would like to see these numbers, as it has been pointed out that it lacks transparency to not show what our electeds are voting on if it could benefit their cities in such a disproportionate way over the average customer. And we would like to see what that breakout would be if this is the way we're going to spend those funds. CAC members and members of the public showed support for both options B and C with local requirements. And our agenda was in a different order. So we had the presentation first on long-term procurement contracts. And in that presentation, we learned that renewable projects are not cost competitive if they're local. And option B does allow for the kind of local renewable investment and procurement that has been too expensive for us to pursue or develop. This is in line with our mission as an organization and the kind of investment that a community-focused CCA would invest in, as opposed to an IOU, where profit is more important than local development or sustainability. Option C, with a focus on resilience, is also in line with the mission of the organization, although a member of the public, Tom Kelly, made an excellent point about NEM3. We did not discuss that last night. It's still a good point. We, as a group, really appreciated the addition from the Finance, Admin, and Procurement Subcommittee for the suggestion of 20% going towards CareFera and medical baseline customers. And there was strong support for the minimum 15 million to go towards resilience hubs, following the parameters outlined in the letter submitted by the local Clean Energy Alliance and supported by the sign-on organizations. So our motion, which passed unanimously, was to, number one, adopt the 20% as recommended by FAP towards the CareFera and medical baseline customers, dedicate at least 15 million towards the resilience hubs with the selection criteria following the letter that was submitted, and then have the rest either go to option B or C with local investment requirements as outlined by the Finance, Admin, and Procurement Subcommittee. There's questions on what I just said, go for it.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Chair Eldred? Okay, seeing none, I'll just ask before we move on to potentially a motion, whether or not there are any more questions or clarifying questions for our CEO. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think, CEO, you said that we don't have to make a decision tonight because we don't have all the numbers anyway. And with, I mean, some good suggestions tonight and some, questions about how we might do this slightly differently, including, the the request for the 15 million for resilience hubs, which does go to our core mission. If we were to not make a decision tonight, could we just re-agendize this sometime before we have, and what would that look like if we moved on, if we waited on that?
I think we just re-agendize it, because the money isn't going to be allocated. I think the major question is just if we are not going to be allocating, a meaningful portion to some kind of on-bill credit, that's probably the major change. And we would, that there's an operational aspect to doing that or not doing that. But that's not a this month or a next month. Certainly by the end of the fiscal year, we'd want to sort of make a decision one way or the other. So it's really probably like to make a decision here by the end of the fiscal year. I will note, I'm not sure I agree. I think the point was made, we don't know the specifics. I think there's not a lot more to provide in terms of specifics. So I think the point was made, oh, well, residential customers are not getting the same as cities. Everyone's getting the same benefit on a per kilowatt hour basis. So a very large user, yes, will get a larger bill credit because they're a very large user. So if a residential customer's average bill is $100 a month, they'll get $20 bill credit. If your average monthly usage is $100,000, well, yes, you're going to get a bigger bill credit, but the math is transparent. It's not that it's not transparent. It's just, each large customer is slightly different. So what we've said is large customers, we actually calculate a specific number. For residential customers, we calculate an average. So, so that means some customers who use a lot, maybe they would be eligible for a few dollars more, and who use less, a few dollars less. But just from an operational perspective, it was efficient to be able to aggregate all residential in that way.
And what about the 15 million to the resiliency hubs? Because it just does seem to go to part of our core mission to create.
Well, I think what's being proposed here, let's just say, let's use the $44 million that is $44 million for incentives for resilience. My only sort of question would be, I hesitate to sort of define a specific number because we don't know what the number. So 15 million could end up being a small percentage of the overall incentives. It could end up being the entire incentive budget. It could be more than the 40% allocation.
Okay.
I guess what I would say here is the way we read this would be if the board were to approve the FAP recommendation, at this time, $44 million could potentially be set aside for resilience.
Okay.
And what exactly that resilience means, I think we lack today a very specific definition of what a resilience hub is. I understand in the letter there are some parameters, and those are useful, but there's a lot more specificity is needed to be able to actually determine who actually gets the money. And, so we want to make sure that we're good stewards of public funds. And so we would want to work through more specific. So I think what we've said, though, in terms of general parameters that we felt are in the spirit are CareFera customers. So because we very clearly can determine what the eligibility criteria is, if there's an account that's CareFera, they would be eligible for this incremental incentive. Income qualified multifamily. So again, we can determine income. This is a building, it's income qualified, so it's eligible for the incremental incentive. And then we would need to think about a sort of what the eligibility criteria are for other types of resilience projects. And that would be something that we would do. But potentially, under this proposal, $44 million would be set aside for this broad category of resilience.
Okay. And then, what about the comment about, if it's like, what, $28 for your average AVA residential customer, as opposed to just putting it all towards the CareFera? I thought that was a reasonable comment.
We have a lot of customers who are not high income, who are not CareFera. I believe the CareFera cutoff is $68,000 for a household, It's in the sort of 60 to low $70,000 for household income. Of course, that is, but if you make $84,000, you know, you are just above a cutoff line for eligibility. And to say that that customer is going to get nothing, I think, you know, there's
All right, so that was the
questions
discussion.
there, right? So,
And then just really quickly going back, so you're right. So if there's 44 million that could potentially go to these, the resilience hubs, will that be a discussion we'll have later about how we're going to allocate?
I
those
think the
incentives?
specific details, so if we know that it's 40%,
Mhm.
we would probably, as we're going through the process of developing our net billing tariff program and the incentives, that's where we would seek further input and direction from the board
Okay.
around how that 40% of the dollars should be apportioned. I will maybe just, I'll note one other thing. There was a comment made that we should be going to cost of service rates and we're charging our customers too much. And then in the next sort of the follow-up comment was, but we shouldn't be giving the on-bill credit back to customers. The on-bill credit is a form, we could set a higher discount or we can provide an on-bill credit to the customer. There's fungibility in money. The reason why we've done it in this way is as we've seen, there's huge variability in the outcomes that is outside of our ability to forecast. And so instead of setting the discount much deeper and then finding ourselves in a position where we cannot support that discount, we are more conservative in setting our discount. And then at the end of the year, we say, all right, things went really well. We have a big pool to give back to our customers. But in the end, it's sort of, and as you get into the cycle, it becomes just sort of part of what customers expect.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other clarifying questions? Go ahead.
Okay, now that you went through all that. So you're saying that what Mrs. Torah wants is possible, right? Is that what you just said?
What I'm saying is that the full 40%, whether it ends up being 44 million, 15 million, or 50 million, like we don't know what it's 40% of. What we're saying here is the 40% under this proposal would go towards resilience projects. The definition of what a eligible resilience project we are suggesting should be developed over the course of the coming months. But sort of as a starting point, the view would, the direction we would be sort of recommending the board to sort of give us is focusing on income qualified residential and community-based organizations or projects that provide sort of specific community benefits.
So to make it simple, you're okay with the idea, but we're not sure how much.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Thank you. Can I ask if this is supported tonight, can that discussion with regard to the definition of a resilience hub as well as where they're going to be placed to make sure there's geographic equity and addressing the concern of disadvantaged communities, can that discussion take place at the executive committee level just to ensure that the public has an opportunity to weigh in? There'll be multiple chances, executive committee, CAC, and then the full board meeting.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. With that said, I will now close public comment and see if there is a motion or potentially a request to table this and have it come back, since I'm hearing a lot of discussion around this. Go ahead.
So I have a motion, but I want to make one or two things clear given the discussion we've had. I think I'm comfortable moving the Financial Administrative and Procurement Subcommittee's recommendation tonight. I think given the discussion we've had and what we've heard from the public, that the parts that aren't in our motion and what we're setting out in the resolution are very important to note around, that comes with the expectation to deliver on what people are expecting and what they've requested, that on-bill credit has a significant focus on those care and Farah customers when it is implemented, and that the allocation to option C has in the design of the parameters of the program that's going to come back to us, and thank you, Chair, for suggesting that come to the executive committee, that have some real targeting towards the kind of community resilience hubs that we've heard requests for from the public in the past, and that or don't look like necessarily everything that we've done before. So I think that's all very important to keep in mind, that, you know, if we're giving the overall direction now, it's incumbent on us to really figure out in the implementation stage how all that's going to work to deliver on all this. So with that said, I'll move the resolution with the 60-40 split recommended by the Financial, Administrative, and Procurement Subcommittee.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table and we'll ask for a roll call vote.
Thank you. Albany,
Yes.
Berkeley, Dublin,
Yes.
Emeryville,
Aye.
Fremont, Fremont,
Yes.
thank you. Hayward,
Yes.
Livermore,
Yes.
Newark. Yes. Oakland.
Aye.
Piedmont,
Aye.
San Leandro,
Aye.
Stockton,
Aye.
Tracy,
Yes.
Union City.
Aye.
Can you repeat that, please?
Aye.
Thank you. Pleasanton,
Aye.
Alameda County.
Aye.
Thank you. That's
Thank
unanimous.
you. We're now going to move on to item number 11. This is workforce and EJ project selection criteria. This is an action item, and our CEO, Nick, is going to kick us off. I believe Howard will be joining as part of the presentation, and then we'll have some comments from our council at the end.
Great, thank you. We do not have a PowerPoint presentation, so there's a, so I'll just give the background. I was going to give the presentation, then she'll do it first. Yeah. Over the last number of months, we, Ava Community Energy staff, have been working with a coalition of environmental justice and labor groups to develop a set of workforce and environmental justice project selection criteria to be applied to our energy offtake agreements. And so these are the big contracts for new clean energy projects that we're actually going to be talking about a little bit later here today. These are the big wind and solar projects. Predominantly, to date, they have been projects that we have contracted with third parties, but this policy would cover both third-party owned projects as well as projects that we may seek to own in the future. So I'll say, before I get into specifics, this has been a highly collaborative process that we have been going through over the last number of months, and really happy to have arrived at a place where we can bring a recommendation to the board that we feel represents a consensus on kind of what good policies are that are going to be good for our agency and good for the planet, good for people. So the priorities cover 5 main areas: workforce and local workforce development, innovation, project location, environmental stewardship, and benefits accruing to equity priority communities. The project, I won't go through everything in the project. I'll say, we provide a whole series of definitions around what is an energy offtake agreement, what is a journey person, what is local hire, and so we seek to sort of define our terms. And then we go into the actual sort of application of the policy. So what we're seeking to do here is not create a explicit projects must do this or must do that, but rather create a set of criteria that we can use when we are evaluating projects to prioritize projects that do the things that we want them to do, that are engaging with robust union hire and training programs for entry-level workers, for instance, or that are making sure to account for sort of the best in class environmental stewardship, making sure that we're prioritizing projects that are on previously disturbed sites, or ensuring that developers are working closely to adhere to all environmental land use requirements in those locations where the projects are. And then on, in the equity priority, the equity communities, it's about prioritizing projects that are in disadvantaged communities. It's about prioritizing projects where the developers are making meaningful engagement with communities throughout the development process to make sure that there's real community buy-in to these projects, and these projects are creating meaningful community benefits. With all that, I am happy to go point by point, but I'm also happy to leave it at that and take specific questions.
Howard and Inder, did you have anything?
Oh yeah, Inder did have one comment to make. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Board of Directors. So I just had a couple of notes I wanted to add to this presentation.
Can you please step closer to a microphone?
Sorry about that. I'm trying to use my computer. Let me
You
get
can
myself.
adjust the mic. There you go.
Thank you. Get adjusted. Good evening, everyone. So a couple of notes I wanted to add to the presentation. With respect to local hire preferences, with a jurisdiction as large as Ava's, I wouldn't anticipate this being an issue, but I wanted to ask the board to authorize staff to work with me to add a little bit of language that I think, getting to Nick's point, that this isn't necessarily a list of mandates, but rather a flexible approach for looking at each project on a project-by-project basis. We would not want to encourage a local hire requirement or preference in an environment where the local area was significantly less diverse than the surrounding communities, and that can be a legal problem. So to address that, I wanted to just add some language consistent with state and federal law. We will provide a preference for local hire as described in the policy. The second issue I wanted to raise was brought to me by Director Roche, and she highlighted that some language in Roman numeral 3. Adrian, do you think you could pull up the language? She had a concern that there might have been a typo here, but I just wanted to briefly look at it and explain after talking with Howard about this section. I can't really see it from here, Adrian. Can you blow up that Roman numeral section 3 of the policy? There you go. Thank you so much. Evaluation, selection, and reporting. In that second sentence in that Roman numeral section 3, it mentions board approval twice, and I think it initially hit me like it might be a typo as well, but I just wanted to talk through it. I think it is correct. This language says that while quantifiable metrics cannot be provided at the time of board approval of the contract under this policy, the known details of project commitments and targets will be provided at that time of board approval. So I do believe that that statement is correct. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you're right. I looked at it again too, and I realized it's not quite redundant. It wasn't redundant. They were going to get certain specifics at that time. All right, thank you. Thank you for looking at that, Inder.
So those, with the board's authorization in a motion, just to allow me to make that minor change to the local hire section to make sure that we stay on the right side of fair employment laws, that's all that I would request. Thanks.
Thank you. Was there anything else to add to the presentation from staff? Okay, we will now take questions. Any questions from directors that are in the room here? Okay, we'll move on to participants online, and I'll first call on Director Cox.
Thank you very much. I think this is definitely a win-win for everyone. And with the recommendation that was just made, that made it a little bit more clearer. And I think that with the workforce development training and all the community benefits, it's definitely helping our community, helping to get more trained construction trade workers from the apprentice to the journey. men level, and also creating small business opportunities. One of the things that I wanted to kind of understand is the goal of what are the actual metrics, the number breakdown. You had the 5 categories, and which one had more weight than the other, or are they all equally distributed and the weight?
There's
Of the
not a
price.
specific weighting.
There's not a specific weighting, but how do you know which one's going to be the better criteria when you roll it into the project? And this is just one aspect of it. I understand that, you know, you got the pricing and some other things that are included in what would be standard public procurement criteria. But I was just trying to understand if one weight was given more than to others in this report, that it wasn't clear to me. And I just wanted to double check on that.
Thank you. Do you have any other comments or clarifying questions?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Simon?
Yes, thank you. I'm very supportive of this item. I do have a question on the location description, and reading through this page 41 of the packet on the location, it states supporting projects in Avis territory or state of California, and then goes on to in-state projects, out-of-state projects. Just wanted to clarify, so this is focusing only on USA projects, in-state and out-of-state?
Yes.
Okay, and it leads into the next item, item 12, which we can't talk about yet, but just trying to understand this location and then some of the projects mentioned in item 12, but I suppose we'll get there under item 12.
Thank you, Director Simon.
Thank you.
Chair Eldred?
Thank you. I had a clarifying question, and it's for council. So for my day job is I run labor compliance for Alameda County Affordable Housing Construction. So I got to be pretty active with some of the community back and forth on this particular thing. And I'm just so impressed with staff for how it's turned out. You said that you wanted to add some language to make sure that we weren't restricting diversity in hire, which can get kind of tricky with Prop 209 stuff. But I'm just hoping that whatever language changes you make are brought back, at least just as an informational item, to be like, this is the language that was added, because we've gotten strong universal support from lots of players that don't always play well together for this resolution with its existing language. So I just would love to see it, and also to learn from it. It would be really helpful and to see the language and make sure that it keeps the spirit of what's happening in this. And that's all.
Through the chair, I'd be happy to address that. I actually was asking the board to authorize me to literally insert the phrase "to the extent permitted under state and federal law, comma, we will then have these local hire preferences." And that would allow us to assess if there was, I think unlikely given the size and diversity of our territory, if there was a situation where a local hiring would actually result in reproducing a lack of diversity in a community rather than in bringing in a diverse workforce. And so that can be managed by looking at the demographics of the community and the surrounding communities. Again, I don't see this as a likely concern if we're staying in the territory of Ava, which is very large and very diverse. But you could imagine it in a smaller community that maybe have less racial diversity or economic diversity or any kind of desirable sort of diversity than its surrounding neighbors. So that's the concern that I wanted to raise, but all I wanted to do was add that phrase. I didn't intend on rewriting that section in any way beyond that.
Do you mind repeating the phrase just so it's clear? Because we may get some public comment on this as well. So just so it's clear for
Right.
everyone. what the
So
phrase-
I wanted to say at the beginning of that section on local hiring preferences to the extent permitted under state and federal law.
Okay, and would that be in the resolution as well as the policy?
That would be in the policy at the beginning of the local hire section.
Okay, but nothing's changing in the resolution.
I would not change the resolution. That's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's clear. Is that clear? Thank you. And then I just want to piggyback on, I understand Director Simon's comments, and we will address that specifically in the next item. But with respect to the issues that Director Cox brought up, does staff have any additional commentary on that?
I think in some cases, there are sort of explicit priorities. So, when we're thinking about some of the workforce, we have highest priority, medium priority, and lowest priority. But no, we don't want to, I think we didn't seek to put specific weighting in here because, we're just implementing it now. And so, we wanted to kind of account for all those criteria as part of our overall weighting.
Okay, and that was already vetted, right, with all the partners that were
There was,
working
this
in
didn't,
collaboration?
this topic didn't actually come up.
Okay, thank you. And then just want to do another check to see if there are any other directors that would have any questions at this time. Director Kell?
Thank you. Thank you. Is this working? Yeah. So I'm happy to support this. Thank you for the work that all the parties did to get to negotiate and get this done. A question about local hire. Clearly, if there's a project within our service territory or pretty much within it, then this all makes a lot of sense because we want to do this. Well, what if there's a project? We have projects that are, let's say, in Southern California, right? From time to time, is that correct? Okay. So are we saying that we really want the project in Southern California, wherever, Riverside County, who knows where, to focus on hiring people there? Or maybe even a little bit closer, maybe a project in near Modesto, just outside Modesto, let's say. And we want them to hire people in Modesto. That's what the policy says. As opposed to them finding really great quality people to hire who happen to be in Alameda County, and they can go to Modesto because it's not too far away. Is this what our policy is? Am I reading that correctly?
I think the challenge becomes when we had quite a conversation actually about, local being from our community, and there are these edge cases, right? I think in conversation, we felt like saying a project in Riverside County, they should prioritize hiring from our service area. It's not really a particularly feasible sort of thing to implement.
Right. What about
a project that
Modesto,
might
though?
be adjacent? Well, it may be during the entitlement process. The local 595 is not necessarily the local in that county. They may actually say, well, we want you to hire our local, out of our local union hall, not from a separate one, and you could run into a whole separate set of issues. And so, I think we kind of landed at we want these projects to stimulate, the local economy. So if they're local projects to us, then certainly they should be local. But if they're not in our area, stipulating that you should be looking to our service area for hiring seems perhaps not the most appropriate, thing to be sort of trying to enforce.
I still use Modesto as an example where we might want to actually do that. But I'm just not making a big deal about it. So that's all fine. The environmental justice section, I had it a second ago now. What did I do with it? My apologies. I see environmental stewardship. Was that the same section?
So I generally think the environmental justice sections were focused on section E, benefits accruing to equity priority communities. Perhaps section D, environmental stewardship.
Got it. See it. Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm happy to support this.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time before we open public comment? Okay, we'll go ahead and open public comment now. And if members or any members of the public in the room, I should announce this earlier, I think you have to fill out a speaker card if you'd like to speak.
Yes. We have one speaker card. Jason Gumatado, recognized for 2 minutes.
Greetings, Chair. Sorry. Pardon me. Greetings, Chair Marquez and board. Thank you for the time tonight. My name is Jason Gumatao. I'm a member and organizer with IBW Local 595. I'm also an Oakland resident, and I'm speaking on behalf of the 40 members of the CCA Workforce and Environmental Justice Standards Alliance. We're here in support of the Workforce and Environmental Justice Project Selection Criteria Policy. So one of the main reasons why we wanted to come here tonight was to express gratitude to AVA staff, to the finance chair, Bowders, who I realize is not here tonight, unfortunately. And we wanted to just, urge you to, step up and be the leaders of this work that we believe you to be. We believe that a policy like this sets the standards for all the other CCAs. We look forward to the work on the backside because there will be the work doesn't stop with this as was raised tonight. We want to be partners in this. We want to be part of the solution along with you all. And so, yeah, just lastly, we just wanted to say thank you again, and we urge your approval of the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have 3 hands raised. Audrey Ichinose, recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm a member of the East Bay Clean Power Alliance and the California Alliance for Community Energy. I want to thank you all for the hard work that went into bringing this project selection criteria policy to the board for a final vote, and I hope the board will adopt it unanimously. In my opinion, especially noteworthy is the section that defines the equity priority worker and provides for his or her inclusion in AVA hiring and apprenticeship programs. It seems to me truly groundbreaking to give explicit consideration to job seekers who are marked by one or more of 11 stigmatizing or burdensome conditions. For example, the currently unhoused or potentially homeless, a single parent having custodial care of a child, a person lacking a GED or high school diploma, an individual leaving the foster care system, and so forth. The document lists 11 such difficult situations. In other words, the policy before you addresses systemic inequity in a truly meaningful way. So I hope you will adopt it unanimously. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Anne Olivia for her long service, her wonderful qualities as chairman, and best wishes to you. We will miss you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Local Clean Energy Alliance, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Hi, this is Jessica Tovar, East Bay Clean Power Alliance, Local Clean Energy Alliance, and part of the CCA Workforce and Environmental Justice Alliance as well. I do want to thank board member John Bowders for his leadership, Elisa Marquez, and the many board members who have supported us along the way and ensuring that we have meaningful engagement with staff of the AVA Community Energy Agency. And I do want to say that this should be a model for other issues moving forward on how to work with stakeholders to ensure that we actually do advance an innovative agency that actually works with community in making sure that everyone, you know, has access to the jobs, to the benefits. And you should be very proud that this is actually a really incredible resolution before you. And so I hope that all board members will vote in favor of this. Thank you very much. Clean power to the people, and certainly want to see more of these clean energy jobs as local as possible in Ava Community Energy Territory. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Eric Viam, and I am a coordinator for the CCA Workforce and Environmental Justice Standards Alliance. I'm also a climate and environmental organizer representing the environmental and climate organizations in the Alliance. And just 3 things that I want to say. One is that the policy before you this evening is a leadership policy. By our knowledge, it's the most thoughtful, proactive policy a CCA would be adopting in the state, and it will serve as a standard for the work that we do going forward for this as a best practice standard to be adopted by CCAs across the state. The second is that we really want to give appreciation to staff, CEO Chassett, Howard Chang, and this, you know, it's been a highly collaborative process, and has been said previously, really a model, serving as a model for stakeholder engagement on complex issues like this. And so just want to really appreciate their collaboration, working in earnest to come to consensus. And what's been achieved through that process is a superior policy that's going to serve Ava community and ultimately serve as a national model. And then finally, just for your consideration, that the work does not stop here. Implementation is going to be a really critical phase for this policy, including the language within our RFOs, the process for evaluation, and you know, criteria weighting. We do believe that that's a appropriate way to proceed, and the reporting at the time of approval and project completion. And so just want to keep that on your radar, that, you know, we do want to be engaged with you through implementation to ensure that this policy is implemented in a way that reaches its objectives. And so with that, I really appreciate Ava leading in the way you're leading, and again, show my gratitude to staff for your really appreciative collaboration. So thank you so much.
Thank you. There are no further hands raised for public comment.
Thank you so much. I will now ask if there is a motion.
Second.
Okay, motions. Adding the language that council had indicated into the policy. So the motion has been made by member Wright and seconded by member Kalb. I am going to ask, because there's been so much engagement on this, if anyone would like to make any comments on the motion before calling the vote. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to express my gratitude to Chair Marquez, Director Bowders, Ava staff, and the broad coalition that brought this forward. You know, when you have all these environmental organizations and labor organizations coming together in agreement, I think we can all be supportive of this proposal. Thank you.
Anyone else? Right?
Yes, I'd like to thank our representatives from labor as well. When we were adopting in Stockton, the one barrier we did hit was with IBEW, and we worked through our process there, and we came in agreement and talked through some of the issues that we did have. So I'm really excited to see that you're at the table and being a part of the solution to how we bring this all together and make it work.
Thank
The electrical work is like the charge ahead.
Any other comments? Okay, I'll be brief. I want to just thank, I think I feel it was Jessica Torvar, the labor movement. There was many stakeholders that brought this to our attention months ago. And at that time, the recommendation was to vet it properly through the FAB committee. So I want to acknowledge the chair of the FAB committee, John Bowders. He was instrumental. And truly to Nick and Howard, I know there were so many meetings with many stakeholders. So thank you for the collaboration and the partnership. And I think this is a model on how we could work together and how we could ensure more local jobs. I've toured many apprenticeship facilities, and it is instrumental and vital in changing people's lives to give them access to jobs that they could sustain their families, have medical benefits and pensions. So I'm really excited about this collaboration, and I'm happy to support it, and just can't express enough my gratitude as well to see the collaboration that took place to get us to this point. So no one else has any other comments. Oh, sure. Sorry, I apologize, people online. We'll first go to our members. I believe they're in Dublin. I'm not sure which one wants to speak, but yes, go right ahead.
This is Sherry from Dublin. So I also want to voice my appreciation of the collaboration work. And this has turned out to be great. And also, I also heard a lot of good comments from my community members. So I just want to quickly show my support to this document and this action.
Thank you. And now I'll call on Chair Eldred.
Thank you. So there was a motion to support the staff recommendation. It did pass unanimously. There was a focus on implementation and the importance of it not just being a resolution that passes and then we kind of ignore. And then just really a very special thank you to Leslie Austin, Tim Frank, Eric Viam, and Jessica Tovar. You have created something new where environment and environmental justice and labor and community justice are all working as community together. And people who work also like clean air and, you know, drinking water and environments that don't burn down, and people who care about the environment also work. So it's really, really beautiful to see this coming forth, and I look forward to more work that you are doing. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Chair Eldred and CAC members for your engagement on this issue as well. Not seeing any more comments. I think we're ready for the roll call vote.
Thank you. Albany.
Yes.
Berkeley. Dublin.
Yes.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Fremont.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. Hayward.
Yes.
Livermore.
Yeah.
Newark.
Yes.
Oakland.
Aye.
Piedmont.
Aye.
San Leandro.
Yes.
Stockton.
Aye.
Tracy.
Yes.
Thank you. Union City.
Aye.
Thank you. Pleasanton.
Aye.
Alameda County.
Aye. And there was a unanimous vote. Congratulations, and thank you everyone who worked hard on this. I really appreciate it. We are now going to move on to long-term contracts for approval. Item number 12. This is approval of multiple long-term contracts, offtake agreements from 2023. Request for, what does the RFO stand for again? Please remind me.
Request for offer.
What is it?
Request for offer.
Request for offer. Thank you. I apologize for that. And bilateral negotiations. And we're ready for the presentation. I believe Marie, I'm not sure if she's she's
Yep,
online. Thank you so
I'm
much.
here.
Thank
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I think Adrian's going to pull up my slides. In recognition of the hour, I'm going to move through some of these slides quickly and move very quickly or skip over material that the board has seen before. At a high level, I am here today to request approval from the board for the CEO to finalize negotiations on and execute 5 different contracts. One of them is for a project that was offered to AVA through our 2023 long-term resource request for offers process. We issued that request for offers in March of 2023. We're working on it with San Jose Community Energy, and we've been negotiating deals for quite a while now. So one of the contracts that we're bringing you is just another project from the RFO. The other 4 are different, and I will talk about a little bit about that difference in just a minute. Next slide. Next slide, please. Background on the solicitation, you've seen this before. Next slide. More solicitation background, we're going to skip this one. This is the evaluation process for the solicitation. I just want to be clear that projects that were offered to us bilaterally, we evaluate them against the solicitation offers, and we use the exact same evaluation methodology. Other than that, we can skip forward. Just want to remind the board that since roughly the COVID pandemic, there have been extreme disruptions in the marketplace. The prices of renewable energy resources and energy storage resources have increased by 40 to, in some cases, 80%. There is some variation there, and there are significant problems still impacting supply chain and preventing new projects from coming online in a timely way or being built at all. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Next slide. We're hoping to procure about 1,000 megawatts of nameplate capacity of generating resources, wind and solar primarily, and probably about 500 megawatts of storage resources with online dates between 2025 and 2030. Next slide. This is the overview of the RFO process. As I said, it was issued in March. We shortlisted in June. We've been negotiating since the summer and all through the fall, and we are getting close to wrapping up all of our negotiations. We'll be bringing you more deals in February and probably in March. Next slide. Okay, now here's where it gets different. There were three counterparties, three developers of renewable projects that reached out to AVA and offered us projects bilaterally. And specifically, they reached out and said, we want to try to get contracts executed for our projects quickly so that we can submit our projects to the CAISO for consideration in the interconnection process. And there's a specific deadline coming up that they want to submit their projects for consideration in this process. Having a signed contract where there's a load serving entity that will be an off-taker on the contract makes it more likely that the CAISO will grant a certain credential, if you will, to projects. So in the interconnection process, there's studies of the impact of new generation resources on the grid. What work needs to be done to the grid so that new resources can interconnect? What's the cost of that? What's the timeline, et cetera? In order for a resource, whether it's wind, solar, a gas plant, storage, whatever, in order for them to participate in the resource adequacy program, which is a major compliance obligation for load serving entities like AVA, in order for a resource to participate in that program, they have to be granted something called deliverability. Think of it as like a special credential that a solar farm or a storage resource can be granted. Not every solar or storage or whatever, not every resource gets that special credential. And so securing deliverability is something that happens, that you can seek, and it's something that you are granted through the interconnection process. And that's what these 4 bilaterally offered deals are trying to be granted. They want to submit contracts to the CAISO so that the CAISO will say, oh, these deals, there's an entity that actually wants to buy from these projects, so we should pay attention to those. Projects that have off-takers are the most preferred by the CAISO. Next is contracts that are being negotiated. Next down the list, projects that are just in the term sheet, early stages of negotiations. Next, shortlisted, just beginning negotiations. And then the least likely to be evaluated by the CAISO are projects that are not being considered for procurement by any load serving entity yet. So 3 developers reached out to AVA and asked to do deals with us. We proposed to move forward with 2 different developers, 2 projects each for 2 of these developers. Next slide, please. This gives a very high level overview of the CAISO interconnection timeline. And what I want to draw your attention to, when the CAISO evaluates projects for interconnection, they don't just like look at each project as they sign up on the interconnection list. Projects sign up to be considered for interconnection, and the CAISO studies them in groups, like classes, if you will. They call it the cluster process. We are currently in the cluster 14 timeline. And as you can see on the top left, this timeline kicked off in March of 2021, and we're hoping it will be wrapped up around the end of 2024. The deadline that's coming up, where the projects we're negotiating, they need to have executed contracts and affidavits submitted to the CAISO related to their projects by February 14th, about a month from now. That is the sort of drop dead date to be considered for deliverability in the cluster 14 process. If you look at the section of text on the bottom right, the cluster 13 date for deliverability consideration was December of 2021. Cluster 12, December of 2020. Before that, it was December 2019, December 2018. It's been over 2 years since projects have been considered for deliverability. There are a lot of problems with interconnecting new projects in the CAISO and throughout the United States right now. But this 2-year delay in considering projects for deliverability, this is a huge risk. There are not just abundant new generating resources out there waiting to be, developed by someone that can come online quickly. The delays with interconnection evaluation and deliverability studies, these are some of the reasons that there's not just tons of great projects for us to go out and consider. Next slide. So now we're going to talk about the actual projects I'm proposing. We'll go through these in the next few slides, so we can skip this. The first one, this is the one that came from the long-term resource RFO. It's being offered by Longroad Energy. This will be the second contract, if approved, this will be the second contract that AVA executes with Longroad Energy. Longroad is an experienced developer. They only have one project that's operating with a CCA at this time. They had a resource that came online in 2020 that's contracted with Marin Clean Energy. And just to remind the board actually did approve AVA executing a contract with Longroad pretty recently for the Sun Pond solar and storage resource. That project is under construction, it's in the development process now. Next slide. So the project we seek to execute a contract with is called Zeta Solar Plus Storage. The total build out, it will be a 75 megawatt solar facility with 75 megawatts of paired storage. Half of that is going to be contracted by San Jose and the other half will be contracted by us. I rounded up on this slide. The board resolution has the exact numbers. We will actually be executing a contract for 37.5 megawatts of solar and 37.5 megawatts of storage. I rounded up on the slide. The project, it will be a 20-year contract. It's expected to come online in April of 2027. The project has an executed interconnection agreement. It has deliverability. It will participate in the RA market, and the project has site control. They will pay prevailing wage. They will seek union labor. Just a little early. They haven't done it yet, but they're committed to doing so. And because this project is in Merced County, they will be making a contribution to our community investment fund. Next slide. Let's move over to the unique project. Okay. The next company that we are seeking authority to execute 2 contracts with is called Ignis. And let me just say, sort of as an aside, bringing these deals where we're seeking to execute contracts so that they can be submitted to the CAISO for this deliverability consideration. These projects were offered to us in late November, early December. We are working on them at a breakneck pace. And this is very different than how we normally bring you deals. Zeta, for example, We've been working on that project for almost a year, evaluating it, doing economic analysis, getting in and really understanding the project, and then negotiating. The next 4 projects, it's the lightning round of negotiations. And so where I would normally wait until I had very strong certainty that we can execute a deal and get to resolution, there's a little bit more risk with these next 4 projects because we're negotiating so fast. And every day I'm on calls with these developers, learning more about the project and working through issues. So these are different. There is some chance that maybe we don't get a deal done if we can't agree to terms. So 2 projects with Ignis. Ignis is a privately owned developer and operator of generation and storage resources. They are based in Madrid, Spain. The company is led by 2 executives. One worked for Iberdrola, or actually it's now known as Avangrid. That is a major Spanish utility and developer of renewable energy resources. So that person has a lot of development experience. The other lead executive has a banking and finance background. Ignis was founded in 2015, 135 employees. They've developed a little over 1,100 megawatts of resources. And as you can see, they have a huge portfolio of resources in the development pipeline. They are also of the 15 gigawatts of international resources outside of Spain, 2,400 of them are in the United States. Some of them are in California, some of them are in Texas. And Ignis is currently co-developing a wind farm in Alameda County. We tried to get that wind farm. We shortlisted them, we negotiated with them, and ultimately they had to sort of take it away from us because another load-serving entity owned a portion of the land they are building on, and that load-serving entity wanted the project, so we lost it. Next slide. But they came to us and offered us a 90 megawatt battery that will be built in Alameda County. The purpose right now, we seek to execute an RA-only contract, a 10-year RA-only contract. If we execute the contract, it will be presented to the CAISO. The CAISO will evaluate it for deliverability. If it gets deliverability, we will then try to renegotiate and execute a contract for all capabilities that a battery resource can provide. RA, resource adequacy, is one of them, but the ability to charge and discharge energy, that's a full energy storage offtake agreement, and that's what we will actually want here. We're not trying to do it right now because we don't have time. They're too complicated to work through in the limited amount of time that we have. So the goal here is do the RA resource adequacy agreement as sort of a placeholder, then come back and try to get, if it gets deliverability, do the full contract. If it doesn't get deliverability, this project just goes, all of these projects will go away, all of the 4 that I'm talking about. If it does get deliverability and then we can't agree upon terms for the full offtake agreement, we have the ability to walk away and we will get a cash payment for a certain number of dollars per kilowatt of installed capacity or of capacity that they get deliverability for. So that's a benefit of these deals. We're helping these developers try to secure deliverability. That's a very valuable thing. If they get deliverability and then we decide we don't want the contract, we get a cash payment. Our customers get a cash payment. They are committed to paying, this will come online in summer of 2026. They're committed to paying prevailing wages. They will seek union labor once they have certainty on the deliverability for this. Next slide. The next Ignis project is controversial, and this is probably the one that will require the most conversation and evaluation by the board. This project is a wind farm that will be located just outside of California in Mexico, in Baja California, in the country of Mexico. We seek to execute a 240 megawatt power purchase agreement that would be a 20-year contract. The wind farm would come online in 2028. Same structure where if they don't get deliverability, the contract goes away. If they do, and then we want to get out of the contract, we get to keep a cash payment in relation to the amount of deliverability they are granted by the CAISO. Will you go to the next slide, please? This is a very simplistic rendering of how the wind farm will be constructed. The wind farm will be 2 kilometers away from a substation in San Diego Gas and Electric service territory. So the wind farm itself will be in Baja California, and there will be a transmission line built to deliver the electricity from California directly into California. It's not stopping off anywhere else in Mexico. It's not going to a different state along the way. It's just delivering straight into California. Ignis will hire IBEW union workforce to interconnect the project at San Diego to the substation and to build the entire transmission line, including the portion in Mexico. They will hire Mexican workforce, Mexican electricians and workforce to construct the wind farm. In hiring United States IBEW workers, they will have to pay prevailing wage. That's just obvious. There is not, to my knowledge, there is not an IBEW in Mexico. Ignis has committed that they will pay Mexican, Baja California Mexican prevailing wage or greater, and they do have health and safety standards. They provided some documentation to me on this. They have health and safety standards that provide workers' comp and safety protections in case people are injured on the job. So they are actually trying to be a good steward to the people who will be developing the project in Mexico. But we certainly understand this is a sensitive topic. And so we want to be very transparent about the nature of what is being constructed and the fact that this is a resource that is physically outside of the state of California. Next slide. The next 2 projects are being offered to us by Clearway. Clearway is a very experienced developer of renewable energy and storage resources. We have 2 operational projects that were developed by Clearway. One is called Golden Field Solar. The other is the Daggett 3 solar and storage resource. Clearway knows what they're doing. Next slide. The 2 projects Clearway is offering us are standalone storage facilities. One is a 200 megawatt battery facility in Fresno County. The other is a 400 megawatt battery facility in Solano County. Similar to the Ignis storage facility, these are being offered as RA resources at this time. If they get the deliverability allocation in probably about 5 years, 3 to 5 years, then we will renegotiate with Clearway. Because these projects have online dates in 2030 and 2032, it's too far out in the future to negotiate on these right now. Clearway can't offer us a price that they can stand by for a full offtake agreement. So we will negotiate with them on these in the future. Maybe we would want all 600 megawatts of storage. Maybe we wouldn't. Everyone knows this. It's totally fine. If these projects are granted deliverability and we decide we don't want to have the RA or the full offtake agreements, we get to keep the cash payment because we delivered something of value, the deliverability attribute. These projects will be built in California. They will use union workforce. They will pay prevailing wage. And they already have site control. I think that is the end. The next slide is just a summary of our long-term resource portfolio. Let me go ahead and stop there and open up the floor for questions.
Thank you, Marie. Do we have any questions at this time? Any directors participating remotely? Any questions? I will call on Member Simon, followed by Member Cross.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Can I, as I was mentioning in item number 11 with the project location criteria. I am concerned about the contract 12B for Mexico and the Mexican labor being used to build the wind turbines there. And to me, this is not in line with item 11, which should be focusing on work in California and at least the USA. And I'm very concerned about this, paying labor in Mexico, and would like to hear a little bit more about why is this being proposed, why looks like U.S. labor is building in Mexico the transmission line I just heard, but they're not building the wind turbines, and like to have some more understanding on kind of why Mexican labor is being used and why it's in Mexico.
Marie, do you want to hear all the questions and answer them all together or address them as
I
they come?
think that makes sense. I'll make some notes as we go so I can try to
Yeah, because
respond
we
to
might have
everything all
some
at once.
others. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Member Cox, followed by our members participating out of the Dublin site.
Thank you very much, Chair. In addition to, I know this is the same topic we had talked about at our subcommittee last week. And Marie, did you get a chance to talk with the IBEW directly to get their input? Because I think it's important that in doing this type of project and you're listening the labor union, that we get input on this prior to us taking a vote. Or the other way, maybe a suggestion would be to take a look at all the other ones, and if they're okay with the way that it's laid out, that we hold off on this one until I get some more clarification. Or maybe there's IBW that possibly may be on the call for public comments, but that one's very disturbing. In addition to what Director Simon had said, I just don't believe in outsourcing to Mexico this type of project when we have plenty of other areas of our location in the territory of AVA to be able to utilize and keep local workers employed locally. So I'm not happy with that one project, but thank you.
Thank you. Now call on our members participating from the Dublin location.
Thank you, Chair. So thank you for the comprehensive work you have done. I want to give a lot of appreciation there. And also I have a similar question to the former two members. And for the project in Mexico, and I also heard from our community, the labor members, question about why we support the project in Mexico. And from our from the presentation, I understand we still have a benefits to the American side. So I want to ask a question, just a look at the real benefits, like or I know part of the work will be in Mexico side. Would that be the majority part of the work? Or transmission side is like small amount of work? How would you describe the percentage of the work in two different countries?
I have a question also.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, on the wind project that we're talking about, the contracting entity will be identified prior to AVA's January board meeting. So do we know who the contracting entity will be?
Go ahead and ask all your questions. I think Marie's going to respond once we're all done.
Okay, and just the I in IBEW stands for international. So I do want to hear the IBEW representatives take on that in supporting the international labor movement. I recognize that, our concern is primarily US, but I do want to recognize or hear about the IBEW philosophy. That's all.
Thank you. Are there any other directors that are participating remotely that have any questions? I will also call on the CAC after public comment unless you have a clarifying question at this juncture.
I don't have a clarifying question. We just have comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I will call on member Wright, followed by member Anderson.
Thank you. I participated in the subcommittee on this as well. We asked some questions and unfortunately, not all of them were answered here tonight. I know that a lot of them were, but not all of them. The actual, it seems it's still a little blurry on workers' compensation in Mexico and some of the, and how that compares obviously to the workers on the San Diego side. I get why we're doing this. Resource adequacy has been a real boondoggle for us this last year, and we're waiting an additional year to come on board in Stockton because of it. So I appreciate the innovation shown by Ava staff on this, absolutely. But even as much as I appreciate the innovation and the work that's been done on this so far, I'm still not comfortable with all of the issues related to worker protections and compensation. And unless I have those, I couldn't vote yes on this project.
Thank you, Director Wright. Director Anderson?
Yeah, my question was really about whether or not Ava has any current projects outside the U.S. That we can look to as examples, that the board can look to as an example for Ava having done this before. And then also, do these types of projects outside the U.S. raise any legal or tax issues, kind of complexities that we should be aware of as a board?
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time? Okay, seeing none. Thank you for the level of engagement. And Marie, if you have a response for maybe not all, but some of these questions raised.
I jotted down some notes. Member Simon, why would we want a Mexico project? Like the high level synopsis of the question, why would we want a Mexico project? This is an appealing project because we seek to execute contracts and procure electricity from resources that provide diversification in our portfolio. Candidly, we're never going to be able to buy all of our electricity from resources that are in Alameda County and San Joaquin County. But even if we could, we wouldn't want to. We want resources that are in other areas because it might not be sunny up here, it might not be windy up here, and it might be sunny or windy in other parts of the country. The nature of sunshine, it only happens during the day. So wind is a valuable resource because we can get that wind generation at night. So that's the benefit of a resource in a different physical territory. This is also a desirable resource because it is well priced. We are being offered a desirable price, not amazing, but a desirable price because it's early in the development process. And then lastly, that slide that I showed with the Mexico wind farm and the transmission line directly connecting into San Diego, that configuration makes this a California Renewable Portfolio Standard Portfolio Content Category 1 REC. It's the gold standard of renewable energy in terms of the way that the Public Utilities Commission and the California Energy Commission value renewable energy generating resources. So that is desirable to us. Totally, we very much understand the sensitivity around a project being sited in Mexico. And as staff members, we think that it is important to us to propose projects to the board and to the community that would be valuable in our portfolio and would help us provide low-cost, clean energy to our customers and be able to meet our aggressive emissions reductions goals. And so that's what this project would be able to do. Next question, Member Cox asked, did I talk to the IBEW? I have not reached out to the IBEW. It will not be Ava's relationship with IBEW, so I have asked Ignis to be in contact with IBEW leadership. Because of the long weekend and the time difference, they have not gotten a hold of IBEW leadership yet, or they have not provided an answer to me yet, but it is a question that I have asked. The members, for the member from Dublin, asked why support it, and I think I answered that. In terms of the question of where is the majority of work taking place, I don't think that I can answer that question. I don't have the technical expertise to quantify the amount of labor associated with building a transmission line, a major high voltage transmission line, as compared to constructing, I don't know, like 100 or so wind turbines. But then good catch about the contracting entity. As I said, we're working on these things furiously. So, writing in placeholder language in some places, but in the board resolution, the name of the contracting entity is in place, and I believe it's WindPro USA LLC, something to that effect. It is identified in the board resolution. Member Wright asked about compensation for electrical workers in Mexico and how it compares to that of workers in the United States. I was actually looking at the government of Mexico's website, and they do have some statistics available. And I'm looking at IBEW compensation averages. There's a wide variety of compensation averages for IBEW workers, like between Northern California, the Bay Area, and San Diego. There's a significant spread. And as one would expect, the averages of workers on transmission, distribution, and generating facilities in Mexico is significantly less. The Baja California state, the northern portion of Baja California, is in the middle of what I saw for the Mexican averages. Member Anderson asked, does AVA have any projects outside of US? Not at this time. Do these projects raise any legal or tax issues? I'm not aware of any legal issues. The question about tax issues is absolutely something that we will have to investigate more. There are other international projects that are delivering electricity to the grid. There have been wind farms in Alberta, possibly one other Canadian province, that used to deliver electricity into California, and there are some gas plants in Mexico that deliver energy to Imperial Irrigation District and some other municipal providers in Southern California.
Just on that point, we also do, and maybe it's been a little while, but we have at various points bought energy from Canada, from our TransAlta. So we bought clean energy from Canada before, not from BC Hydro System. So not from under long-term offtake agreements like this, but there is precedent where we have bought resources from
great
Canada.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah.
The only other thing, and Marie, you're maybe going to get there, but I will offer for this particular project, because there are some, because it was a project we had to move pretty quickly on. One idea that we staff has kicked around to say, like, yes, we do think from an economic and a clean energy perspective, this project has is interesting. We recognize that there are some labor issues that need to be further vetted and better clarified. And if we don't feel that we can get those answers and feel good about them, then this project isn't not a good fit for our portfolio. And so one idea that we've been kicking around that I wanted to suggest is the potential that if we are given the authority to move forward with this project, there's two contingencies. One is we have to be able to negotiate a termination right. So within some period of time, we have a unilateral right to say we are terminating this agreement, no financial consequences for us. And also to create space for us to come back to this board with more information about labor. So within some time certain, we would come back and say, all right, we have spent more time. They've been able to provide more specificity around the signed agreements, the actual commitments. we would present that to the board. And if through that presentation, this board feels, that's not good enough, then that direction is given to us, and then we would proceed to terminate the agreement. So those are sort of the two I think we would feel very comfortable taking those as directions to move forward if indeed we want to keep this alive as a potential project because of the economic and clean energy diversification benefits that it provides.
Thank you.
Could I make one other
Yes,
comment, if
go
that's
ahead.
okay?
Yes.
Well, again, acknowledging the complications and some of the things that we still need to figure out on this project, we fully appreciate. The one thing I wanted to just emphasize on the question of why a Mexico wind project? What is unique about a Mexico wind project? And certainly Maria's touched on that, but I just want to emphasize maybe a couple points. The diversification piece is a really important one. When you look at the types of renewable generation resources that are available to us in the state of California, it's predominantly solar and storage. We are going to be buying a lot of solar and storage here on out. That's the bulk of what we receive in our RFOs, with a very limited base of wind generation. Obviously, we've already brought forward to the board in recent months New Mexico wind, New Mexico being very different than Mexico wind, but New Mexico wind, and that was a unique opportunity to procure significant resources from wind. I do not anticipate we will have much wind to bring forward to the board otherwise. And we are generally talking to any source of wind that is available. Most of that is out of state. The limited amount that is still developable in state, some of that is in Altamont Winds, but there's probably 50 to maybe 100 megawatts left of that is possible. And so we will be left with a lot of concentration in solar and storage. And so we have to think about ways that we can diversify. And we've done limited geothermal that has fairly limited ability to bring a lot of new capacity into California. And so that's really the reason why we are bringing forth a project like this, understanding some of the complications and some of the open questions we still have. So that diversification piece is just one that I really want to emphasize as to why this is unique and at least important to consider. And then the other piece that just to add on is the COD date is anticipated to be 2028. So I would be surprised if there's another wind resource that we'll be able to bring forward in this between now and 2028.
I think Member Simon asked the question, why this project, and I would say Howard highlights it. But so if we think about when we buy renewables, we want them to be either to be able to be delivered into California, and that requires significant transmission investments. So yes, there are strong wind resources in Wyoming and Idaho, for instance, but the grid infrastructure does not exist today to bring those projects. So there's significant uncertainty around building the necessary infrastructure to bring wind from Wyoming and Idaho. New Mexico, well, we're buying a lot of New Mexico wind because there is a defined transmission line that's being developed. And so I think that is, I would say the number one sort of thing that we're looking at is because of the proximity of this project to California, it has a clearer line transmission strategy than a lot of other in US, in country, but out of state wind projects that don't have clearly defined transmission strategies. And that actually includes our offshore wind, right? So offshore, and why not do that? Well, because the offshore wind projects themselves don't have clear transmission strategies to come online in that 2027 to 2028, 2029 timeframe. You start talking about 2031, 2032, 2033, yes, there are going to be more resources, but we need it sooner rather than later. And so, that's how we arrived at this project being worth having this discussion about.
Thank you. I'm seeing a couple more hands raised, so I'm going to call on Member Cox and then Simon. You're muted, Member Cox.
Thank you. I do understand. I appreciate all the hard work that it's been put into this report and reporting out on the projects. One of the things that I did want to make sure is clear is that I have confirmation that the IBEW represents workers in US and Canada. So if you're a worker in Mexico, you're not covered by the IBEW. And that leads me to have some other concerns that even where do the workers, if they're not getting paid the prevailing wage, where is the workers' rights to be able to express their environment of their pay and the conditions? And that's missing from this piece because they're not covered, say, by the California Department of Industrial Relations that sets the prevailing wage, that sets the certified payrolls and the apprentice program. So there's some open exposure with this location in Mexico. So I just wanted to add that additional comments there. Also in contracts and international, depending on the legal entity, that if you're dealing with foreign currency and back and forth, even though it may be set as US, there's a lot of hedging currency language that goes into those contracts. And then there's always a true up based on the index, based on the time of when the money is being exchanged or paid. So I see Marie shaking her head, and maybe you could explain.
The contract is with an entity that is formed in the state of Delaware.
Oh, okay. So it is US.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
The parent company is Spanish, but they have an office in San Diego. They have created an American company that would be the counterparty on this contract.
Thank you. I stand corrected on that piece. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Simon?
Yes, a clarification. During the presentation, if you could clarify, I thought I heard that US IBEW workers would build the transmission lines within Mexico. Is that correct? Is that what I heard?
The transmission line, a portion of it will be on U.S. soil and a portion of it will be on Mexican soil. U.S. IBEW workers will build the whole transmission line. They will not work on the development of the wind farm itself. The reason for Ignis's reason for making sure that it's one set of employees that builds the entire transmission line is, it's not like the most sophisticated technology, but you don't want to hand over the construction of an asset like this to a different team halfway in the process. So they are working with the Mexican government to get authority for U.S. IBEW workers to build the entire transmission line, including the portion that is physically on Mexican land.
Okay, so that goes into my question is, if they're looking at having IBEW American workers build in the US, why would the IBEW American workers not build the wind turbines themselves?
I think that would be a hard sell in Mexico. They're going to have to get a special exemption to have American workers do construction outside of the United States. And so that just getting approval on that requires significant advocacy and engagement with the Mexican government. I think it is a step I think for Ignis, it is probably a step too far and unlikely to be accepted and result in a project being built if that condition is applied to the entire construction of the project.
Okay, I'll just state I'm not supportive of this item 12B. I do have another general kind of question. You mentioned.
I'm going to respectfully ask that we not take positions until we hear public comment, please. Just
Oh, my apologies.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, my question is, you mentioned offshore wind generation, but it's not coming online till later. What type of progress have we made in networking or starting to lay the groundwork to bring in offshore wind generation? What kind of work has been done?
Offshore wind development off the coast of California is in its infancy. There have been auctions for ocean land rights, basically, but 2030, having projects offshore wind come online in 2030 is aggressive and is largely considered to be unrealistic. 2035 is a more likely time frame. And so we are part of a group that is evaluating the role of offshore wind in our portfolio. It is too soon in the process to be talking to developers. It's just very, very far out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Simon. Director Roche, and then I just want to clarify, Chair Eldred, do you have a question at this time? Your hand is raised.
Yeah, it was just a clarification on the last statement that Marie made.
Okay, give me just a second. I'm going to call on Director Roche, and then we'll come back to you. Go
Thank
ahead.
you, Chair. Yeah, thank you. I just had a question. So the wind farm will be built by Mexican workers, and then they'll maintain it as well. So, right, is that right? And then will there be no benefit to the local community in Mexico as far as the wind energy goes?
The wind energy would all come into California. The benefit to the local community in Mexico is it would be displacing the possibility of developing fossil fuel generating resources, additional fossil fuel generating resources in Mexico that could then deliver electricity into California. So it would have clean air benefits and economic benefits to the people in the community, but no electricity would be physically delivered there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Chair Eldred. Chair Eldred. She may have stepped away. Go ahead.
Having a little bit of this Central American internet.
No worries. Go ahead.
Issues. Okay, so I have heard from labor has come out, and there seems to be some general opposition. I have not spoken to IBEW leadership in Southern California. I am, though, the area that this project is in a quick look, I haven't seen any competing fossil fuel generation or even appropriate fossil fuel in that site. I reached out to a few developers I knew about this particular. So I'm just wondering if you know of fossil fuel generation that is trying to take the space there. And then as far as the offshore wind in California, in Humboldt, the project has gone forward well enough that we've had even several agreements already figure out like which union is going to have jurisdiction over some of the areas where like some of those labor fights can happen. So it's progressed enough that some of those details are either already worked out or in the middle of a heated battle in one particular case. So I'm just wondering whether or not we've taken a look at the Humboldt project and what the for that, because I don't actually have that off the top of my head.
What I would suggest is, Marie, hold off. I would suggest, I don't know that we need to, we're not, this is, offshore wind is not the topic at hand. And so happy to talk more about offshore wind, but I want to just sort of kind of recenter us on this project a little bit before we.
So that makes sense.
In response
heard the sentence.
In response to Chair Eldred's, I guess, assertions about the opinion of California IBEW leadership on this project, without knowing the names of the individuals that you spoke to and their positions and which union branch they are in, I really can't respond. I can only offer that Ignis is in the process of getting assurances and some preliminary commitments from IBEW leadership in Southern California.
That's helpful. And can you respond to the one about the, if there is known emerging fossil fuel development on the same site as the wind?
No, nor did anyone suggest that there is fossil fuel development on the same site. There are natural gas generating resources in Baja California that deliver electricity into California. Additional resources could be developed in the future.
Thank you for the clarification. That's all.
Thank you. I'm now going to open public comment.
Okay. We have two speakers for public comment, Tim Frank and Local Clean Energy Alliance. Tim Frank, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Terrific. And you can hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Terrific. So I'm speaking on behalf of the Alameda County Building and Construction Trades Council. And just to clarify the issue, IBEW actually has representation in Canada, in the US, and in US territories, including Guam and Puerto Rico, but not in Mexico. As far as we are concerned, the building trades, including IBEW, locally, we think that there actually is a solution to this, which is to differentiate between the other projects and this one, and not to necessarily say no to this one, but to put it on a path that requires a touchback to the board so that we can resolve the labor issues and make sure that they're handled to appropriate satisfaction before the board approves the project. That could happen relatively quickly, but we think that actually asking for that touchback would be a really important safeguard.
Thank you. Local Clean Energy Alliance, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Jessica Thorad, Local Clean Energy Alliance and East Bay Clean Power Alliance. And I just want to acknowledge that I started my comments during open public comment about Ava Community Energy having a commitment to local clean energy development and other energy resources. And this agency really needing to be regrounded and circle back to its original commitment that it made to the community in terms of building community benefits here at home in the Ava territory of which you serve. And reinvesting the money that people pay for electricity back into the community. This is far out of touch. And actually, I'm personally embarrassed by this. You know, I think it's really important to highlight that, you know, we've been asking for local resilience hubs with microgrids for years now. And now you're talking about outsourcing work and building projects in Mexico, where, you know, 101 on globalization, this is how you take away jobs. This is how you exploit workers. This is how you desecrate the environment. That is what this project really is about. And I don't think a public agency should be endorsing that kind of, these kinds of projects. Going back to, again, needing to do the reinvestment and creating the jobs here at home and at least in the state. Plenty of sunshine here. You know, what's next? Solar in China? Like, let's not do that. Let's stay within the state and within Ava Community Energy.
Thank you.
Power to the people.
There's no further public comment.
Okay, thank you. Member, and I apologize because I always stumble with pronouncing your last name, so I apologize. So can you please tell me how to properly pronounce?
You call me coach.
Coach? Director Coach.
Had to leave my wrestling match today. I think the transition line from China to the United States would be kind of hard to put up. But anyway, I see the benefits of it, right? My son works for IBEW and my grandson and his daughter. And they're saying jobs are slow, everything's slow. So I think IBEW workers would love to have the jobs there. And maybe we can find a way for Ignis to increase the salary for the people working in Mexico. You know, maybe by a little bit, something. I'm sure, the people down there would like the jobs too. So I see what we're trying to do is get energy that's a little cheaper for us and benefit the people in California in that way. That's my comment.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a question, comment, or would they like to make a motion? Member Wright?
Yeah, I will just kind of add, there are electrical unions in Mexico, but it's super complicated. All right. It's one of them was completely disbanded about 10 years ago, and they're working their way back into representing workers down there. It's gonna be very, very complicated. That said, there are corporations that do work in Mexico. When I was reading this article on the SAMA, the electrical union in Mexico, they were talking about Bechtel having a project there. I know that my brother lived in Bonita, just south of San Diego, and worked frequently in Mexico for AT&T. So I know that it goes on. And there's a way for American workers to work there if that's the sole barrier. I would imagine that IBEW, just because of the jobs this is going to create in San Diego, is going to be fairly supportive. But there's still, I think, quite a few unanswered questions here. And my questions going back to representation in Mexico, is it going to be the SAMA or Suterm, which is the other company? I mean, those are questions that we have to get answered, because if you read the article that the North American Congress on Latin America has on this issue of electrical unions in Mexico, it's a big difference. Okay, so I like the suggestion that was made, that we consider the others separately from this, and then we continue to do more homework on the issue of the Mexico project and bring it back. And if nobody else has comment, I'll make that motion.
We still have more comments, but thank you,
Okay.
Member Wright. I might come back to you.
Okay.
Director Roche, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I see the dilemma. I'm always asking about bright choice, and the only way we're going to get there is if we procure more renewable energy. So I can see why this project is of benefit. And I think to Director Coach's comment that I think the IBEW and San Diego would probably like these jobs. So I wouldn't want to see us just kill this, but knowing that there are some, and I think the point that I think it was Jessica made about sort of potential exploiting workers in Mexico. And I don't even know what that looks like yet. Maybe they're going to get, have unions of their own and get fair wages there. So I would be in support of us not killing it, because I'd like to, even if we have to come back, I mean, I don't want to say this, but a special meeting to move it forward if we get some clarity and if we understand what it looks like on the Mexican side of it, because I can see why we need to procure this kind of energy if it's going to be so much further in the future before we're able to get wind energy projects like this in California. I think it is, I think we want to keep this on the hook, basically. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Roche, for your comments. I'm now going to call on CAC Chair Eldred to give her report out from the meeting they had last night.
Thank you. As you can imagine, this was a lively discussion. And ultimately, the CAC was in agreement on opposition to the Mexico project. To just touch on something from what a member of the public said earlier, when NAFTA happened, prevailing wage in Mexico dropped so substantially, so quickly, that over 1 million families were put into poverty that were not there before. Bilateral and regional trade agreements have continued to have downward pressure on prevailing wage in previously organized sectors. And construction is certainly not exempt from that history. So the thought that maybe because we're having IBEW build the power lines, which is a good idea, that they're going to get more from this is not actually how that's been playing out. I would be more than happy to provide additional information on that. It's very well documented. there was a motion to separate the Mexico project out and to support the other projects, but not the Mexico one. And that did not pass. There was 3 yeses, 2 nos, and 1 abstention. In looking at where the abstention was coming from, it matched the nos, which were, we've seen a lot of projects coming forth that are far away, and people from the CAC really want to see greater investment in energy efficiency, local storage projects, and maybe taking a look at some of that surplus to be able to match, like make the local renewables more price competitive. And just to point out that nothing in the resolution that we were all just so excited about passing on workforce and EJ protection selection criteria discusses anything about energy from Mexico. Like the whole idea was to see how we can do this locally, how we can do these worker protections, how even if we build somewhere farther away, that we can ensure those worker protections. And this specifically the Mexico project just fails to do that. So that is the report back from the CAC.
Thank you. And I'll now call on our members participating from Dublin. And you're muted. Sorry. You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah, this is Jeff Nyberg from Pleasanton. The discussion emphasized that the Mexico wind project was being offered at a desirable price, and that it would meet the highest standard for California renewable energy standards. So it clearly is a benefit to AVA. The idea of diversifying our supply options is very attractive. It was mentioned how the availability of wind energy supply is something that AVA would like to increase, and that's all part of risk reduction and part of the overall role of the board of directors is to look at ways that AVA can reduce risk in order to be more effective and not foreclose our options. I would think that the building trades and IBEW would be ecstatic about getting this work, building an entire transmission line, including part of it in Mexico. The IBEW person on the who made public comment mentioned the idea of touching back with the board of directors, and AVA leadership also mentioned having target dates for contingent decisions in the future that do offer an off-ramp for AVA in case of future adverse conditions or board disapproval. So I think for all those reasons that this is a desirable project to move forward on, and I would support the adoption of a recommendation to move forward on the project.
Thank you. Are there any other comments before?
Also make a comment here.
Oh, yes, I apologize. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So this is Sherry from Dublin. So my thought is, it sounds like a lot of us would like to move this, not move this, I mean, take this Mexico project separate, put it separate, so we can make two motions out of this agenda item. We'll do all the project minus this Mexico project, and then we'll do another motion. I think that would make sense.
Thank you. Director Bedoya?
Thank you. Let me put my hand down. Thank you for the opportunity. I just want to say that the city of Tracy would be fine with bringing that item back to the board at some point. But I would also very much be in support of moving the 5 items at this time. I see it as, diversifying our portfolio, reducing risk. I personally don't, at this time, necessarily buy into, if we do this project, the past is gonna, reoccur and it's gonna go the same way that things may have happened in the past. I I think we should be optimistic, give it a try. I would like to move the motion, for all 5 projects, staff's recommendation. And I definitely think we should not kill that project. I think there hasn't been any concrete reasons based in facts as to why we should kill the Mexico project. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Go ahead.
Comment and then what I was just going to suggest, just maybe share from a decision perspective is, given the requirements that the California Independent System Operator has put on us, if we want to keep the Mexico wind project alive or in consideration, we do need to take an action for our next board meeting. And so what I would say, just in terms of the decision point, is either if we want to reconsider, what I would say, and this is, I think, what I heard from Member Wright, but also a version of what Tim Frank said was, give the approval with a very explicit condition that you must have a termination right, and that termination right, we are required to execute that termination right based on feedback from this board within a time certain. So if it's in 3 months, 6 months, within the next first, say 3 months or 6 months, we must report back on workforce. The board will take an action at that time based on the specific information around workforce, whether or not we must terminate the agreement or not. So I would either structure it as either give us that authority to move forward with the project or don't move forward with the project. We can't bring the project forward in February because we will sort of have missed the deadline.
window.
So that's just my one comment in terms of how to move it forward.
Thank you for that clarification. Just a second. I want to make sure. Director Simon, I thought your hand was up. Yes?
Yes, my questions may have been answered just now. However, just trying to understand why this cannot come back, why this cannot be separated. I heard you just say you're going to miss the window, but could you explain more why will you miss this window? Why can't this be worked out and then come back?
If you recall the slides that I had with the timeline, those different like bubble boxes and a highlighted date, February 14th. That is the date by when executed contracts have to be submitted to CAISO with an affidavit asking the CAISO consider this project, evaluate it for eligibility for the deliverability credential. And so if they submit an executed contract, the project is more likely, but not definite, to get the deliverability credential. If we miss that window, maybe we'll have another chance in somewhere between 1 and 5 years for it to be considered for deliverability, and deliverability is required for participation in the RA program. We do not know when our next chance is for projects to be considered to be eligible to participate in the RA program.
So if things are not worked out, does the board still have the ability to not move forward with this project? Or is a vote today meaning this project's going forward, period?
No.
Or is there a way to not move forward if things are not worked out with the labor situation?
So the way it would be structured is we are given the authority to negotiate and execute an agreement with this WinPro project. Conditioned on in that agreement, we must have a unilateral termination right. So we must be able to terminate the contract at our sole discretion without a termination penalty. And we must come back to the board within a time certain, say 3 months, 6 months, to review updated information on workforce. Based on that presentation, this board would take action to say, you shall exercise your termination right, or do not exercise your termination right. You might maintain it for future termination, but at least at this point, we think that this project has met the minimum bar from a workforce perspective. We feel comfortable leaving this project in the portfolio. So there would be absolutely an opportunity for this board, within this time frame, to take a definitive action. And in the end, we may go back to Ignis with those terms and they might say, sorry, we don't want to agree to those terms, and then we won't execute the contract.
Okay, and you said that's in about 3 months, or when will that come back?
Can I clarify on the timeframe? It needs to be a longer timeframe because in 3 months, we won't even know if the project actually has deliverability. So
It would
that's
have
not a,
it would have to be end of the year, or beginning of 2025, so that the
yeah,
Kite
so
will
I
have time
think
to
it's
make
probably
their
more like a
determination.
12 to 18 month timeframe, but I don't think that changes the ability to terminate regardless.
That is correct, and I want to remind the board that if the project is granted deliverability, let's say it gets all 240 megawatts of deliverability, and then we terminate the project, we get to keep, for this project, it would be $2.4 million. It would be, thank you, Ava, for helping us get deliverability. You keep $2.4 million, Ignis will go away and try to sell the project to someone else.
Okay. Director Simon, do you have any other questions?
No other question, just a comment is, you know, how we can build the transmission line in Mexico, but not the wind turbines. That's not very clear to me. I understand, I hear it's going to be difficult, but if you can do one, I don't know why you couldn't do the other. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna do a last call because we do need to wrap this up. We still have a closed session item. So please raise your hand if you have a question, but this will be the last call for questions. I do see Director Cox, but just want to do a last call. And I have more. Okay, so there's 3 questions in the queue, Director Cox, Director Bodilla, and I have one quick question. Go ahead. You're muted, Director Cox.
I was not making a question. I was going to make a motion.
Okay,
I'll hold that.
I've already acknowledged Director Wright is prepared to make a motion, so we'll wait to hear his. Maybe you'll second it, but I've already acknowledged that he will be making the motion. He was ready to do that earlier, but I've been allowing times for questions. So thank you. Director Bodilla, do you have a question, or I see you put your hand down? Okay.
No, I'm sorry. Can I brief comment? Just for the record, Bedoya. I guess the only thing I would ask the motion maker is if you could encapsulate the comments or the direction that was just cited by the CEO. That's all I would ask.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask my question because I think it's important for the record, even though Nick, you've already answered it. But my question was going to be, before you raised it, was the request to do the unilateral termination. Has that been already discussed with Ignis?
Yes, it has. Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes, it has. Yep.
But we don't know if they've accepted it yet.
I mean, we have talked about termination rights, and so I would expect they will accept it, but, you know, I think exactly what the termination rights are tied to and the timeframes we would want to negotiate, we need to talk to them about, but yes, this is would not be a surprise to them to hear that we would want a termination.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Now I will call on Director Wright to make a motion.
Is it possible to make the motion to consider the 2 items separately? The non-Mexico project, and then consider the second Mexico
Yes.
project?
Yeah, you could parse it out.
That's my motion.
Okay, let's just be clear, because this is a very, okay, so would your recommendation be to move item A, C, D, and E? Let's take the easy one up first.
Yes.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay, motion's been made by Director Wright, seconded by Director Roche to move items A, C, D, and E under staff report item number 12. Roll call vote, please.
Great, thank you. Albany.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was there a question on, was that clear?
Yes, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I guess I would ask, if it's okay with you, Chair, may I have the opportunity to make a substitute motion?
What is your
Or I guess I would make a substitute motion, or I would ask for the motion maker to accept a friendly amendment. I would like to move all 5, you know, A through A, B, C, and D, and E, with the yes, with the termination, but I just really like how the CEO, you know, in detail explained what the process could look like. So my motion would be my motion or my request for Director Wright to accept a friendly amendment to move all 5 to include the discussion that we just had.
Kind of defeats the purpose, but I'm more than happy to make both motions for the sake of it.
We're gonna, I think the goal is we're gonna get there. I think we're just trying to make it as
Fair. I'm good with that. I expect the worst when a motion is separated. I'm hoping that if it's parceled out, that it's not, killed for reasons on principle. So I will go for unity. I'll withdraw my motion. I'm really hoping that we go for unity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, so we're going to resume the roll call vote. I believe we're on Albany.
Yes.
Thank you. Dublin,
Yes.
Emeryville,
Aye.
Fremont,
Can you just rephrase what we're
Yes,
voting
so
on?
I
just
will,
since we changed
one
it.
more time, everyone, please listen carefully because we still have many items. So the recommendation is to move staff report item number 12. There is only one motion on the table right now, and that is to move under item number 12, projects A, C, D, and E. And it was made by Member Wright and seconded by Member Roche.
I just want to clarify, I think the motion was to separate the two, so that it was clear.
He did,
Thank you.
yeah, he did
I
capture.
I restated it to just consider those
Okay,
those
thank you.
4.
Great.
But his commentary was he'd like to make 2 motions. So
Yes.
is that clear to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, Clerk, do we need to start the roll call vote again, just because I feel like there's been lots of back and forth? Does it make it a difference for you? Just want to,
No, I mean, I can continue from
okay, perfect.
from Fremont.
Thank you.
Fremont,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Livermore,
Yes.
Newark,
Yes.
Oakland. Oakland,
Number 12.
Oh, aye, sorry.
Piedmont,
Aye.
San Leandro,
Yes.
Stockton,
Aye.
Tracy,
Yes.
Union City,
Aye.
Pleasanton,
Aye.
Alameda County.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for the conversation. And as Member Wright has stated, he wanted to make an additional motion. So
And I'll make the additional motion that we approve item E.
B.
Item B.
Let's be very specific on this one.
Yes.
This is WinPro USA Ignis Wind Farm Project.
We approve item B with the understanding that it is predicated on our ability to sever the contract with no incurred penalty. And that, right, we can unilaterally sever it with no penalty, and that it will be brought back within a,
12 months?
Reasonable timeframe?
well, no, it's time certain. So what's the time certain?
12 to 18
12
months is probably.
Brought back within,
An update, the status update in 12 months.
brought back with a status update in 12 months. And if it does not meet the labor standards that we have been discussing here today.
What I would say is, an update.
We can't hear it.
Okay.
We should bring it back as an action item within 12 months for the board to consider.
I just wanted to be clear that the board has the ability to make the decision to sever the contract.
Okay, is there a second?
Oh, okay.
Everybody wants a second, great. Okay, so
It sounds like it's going to pass all C.
I'm gonna, the motion's made by Director Wright, and will now acknowledge Director Bedolla, who wanted to make a friendly amendment. So we're all clear. This is specifically just on item number 12, letter B. And we captured the right to unilaterally terminate the agreement. And we will have a status report from staff to come back within 12 to 18 months.
12 months, 12 months.
Did I say recommendation?
To board, 12 months.
Sorry, go ahead, Member Anderson.
Sorry, not a status report, but an action item. I think
An
is what
action,
was-
yes, an
Yes.
action item will come back to us in 12 to 18 months.
Point of clarification, under
motion would be any reason, no one of the other concerns that was brought up or all of the
Any concern, I believe.
Any concerns? I'll accept that.
Yep.
Yep.
Is that clear to anyone? We could terminate for any reason?
We didn't hear the comment.
You didn't hear?
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify that we, under the motion, we would be able to terminate for any reason that we had brought up today under discussion, or any reason that comes up in the next 12 months,
Yeah.
rather than just the labor standards.
And I accepted that clarification.
Okay, the motion's been made by
Who's the
Director.
second?
So Director Bodea, do you accept that? Because you're the seconder.
I'm good with that. Just Bedoya, sorry. I know you got it.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Bedoya.
Sorry,
Bedoya.
I apologize, Bayola.
No problem.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Great, thank you. Albany,
Yes.
Dublin,
Yes.
Dublin, is that your vote? Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Emeryville,
Aye.
Fremont,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Livermore, Newark,
Yes.
Oakland,
Aye.
Piedmont,
Aye.
San Leandro,
Yes.
Stockton,
Aye.
Tracy,
Yes.
Union City,
Aye.
Pleasanton,
Aye.
Alameda County.
Aye.
Motion approved unanimously.
Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate the conversation on all the items we've heard tonight. I am going to respectfully ask that item number 13 be continued. Is there any objections? I want to ensure that our vice chair can participate in this discussion. Are there any objections with continuing the selection of the chair and vice chair? That is an action item, and I'm requesting to move that to our February meeting. No concerns? Okay, we're going to move that then. Thank you very much. Now move on to item number 14, board member and staff announcements, including requests to place items on future board agendas. I'll first ask staff if you have any announcements, and then I'll move on to board members. None? Okay. Are there any board members that would like to place an item on a future board agenda? Seeing none, I'm just going to ask a question, and I should know this answer because I feel like I've asked it in the past. But can staff tell us when we will be looking at the local development plan in terms of status update? When will that be coming back to us?
Yes, we plan to bring it back sometime between March and May is when we will be bringing back the status update on the local development business plan.
And will that come first to the executive committee or directly to the full board?
It will go to a committee. I think we would want to, whether the executive committee or the FAB.
Okay, so that's yet to be determined which committee, but it will be vetted at a committee level.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Are there any other directors that would like to put a future agenda item on? None? Okay, we're going to move on to closed session. Before we do that, I'm going to open public comment on closed session, which is public employee performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code Section 54957 regarding the Chief Executive Officer. Are there any members of the public that would like to make a comment on this item?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Okay, so I'm going to remind our colleagues participating remotely that you should have a separate Zoom link for closed session. You can log off here. After we're done with closed session, none of you have to return. I will be the only one to come back to reconvene the meeting just to make any announcements. Are there any questions before we adjourn this meeting or take a break to go into closed session?
Chair Marquez,
Yes.
could I just ask that we have a 5-minute break?
Absolutely, yes. Well, let's make it 7 minutes. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. 2 extra minutes.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
So interesting. I feel like with these items, we have constant competing.
Live?
Are we recording?
We are recording. We are live.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm calling this meeting back to order. We had closed session and there is nothing to report out. Therefore, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Great, thank you.
Sorry.